sport fans watching around the world. This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Let's get straight into the episode.
Yeah, we heading for the sun. Charlie got my high, I ain't tripping for the funds. Yeah, I won't start, I ain't tripping, I'm a stun.
Alright y'all, today's a Monday and Monday's off of Docs. Thank you for clicking or tapping and let's start today's spew. Guys, you read the title of the intro, you already know who it is. I'm happy to be welcoming to the Doxcast for the very first time, Yusha Kofi.
Mate, thanks for having me.
Alright, easy. Good. Yusha Kofi. I like that. It's cool. It's such a different name, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so different.
It's quick off the hip.
Yeah, it's cool.
I've had trouble with long names my whole life, so.
Yeah, nice, quick and easy. Well, before we do get into the yarn today, I have to say that I don't just appreciate you coming and doing the episode. Whether you are aware or not, you have had an impact in my life in general. Being 13, 14, 15, you are very impressionable. I've learned the hard way in some situations by doing so, but you being my fight trainer, you were always giving advice on, priorities, balance, along these topics, and they were always after classes as well. You were there to do your job, which was trainer, but you were taking the time afterwards in doing so. Even when I saw you a few years ago in Queensland, you gave me some advice then that has definitely led me to where I am.
Did you take it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely led me to where I am today. And even today, you're still, giving me advice on things like social media, networking and reach and gauge and things like that. So I'm not just grateful for the episode, dude. I'm grateful for the entire impact you've had.
Pleasure. I didn't know you were 13 at the time.
Yeah, I might have been 14 or so. Yeah, 14.
Time moves quick, eh?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it definitely does. It leads me to my first question then. Have you, what leads you to have that characteristic trait that I notice in you? And that's, reaching down and giving someone a hand when you can see some advice might be there. And have you ever had anyone in your life who you might feel be a bit older than you that has done the same thing for you?
Yeah, there's plenty of reasons why. First of all, just religiously, I like to give. We're told that we're going to get back 7 to 10 times back of whatever you give, whether that's physical amount or if it's knowledge or whatever. Another aspect is that at this time in my life, I feel like I've been extremely blessed and lucky. I wouldn't even say lucky. I've been extremely blessed. Coming out of jail, I had good people around me that pretty much just gave me a lending hand to do the right thing and put me in a position where I am now, where I own my own house and I've got savings and a business and multiple businesses. So whenever and always, I've always roughly had that pay it forward feeling. Just whenever I see somebody that can reciprocate the energy I want to give them, I'll take time and do it. But it's come at a cost a lot of times. A lot of times I've given away a wealth of knowledge or information or money or whatever it was to the wrong people, and it's come back on me. But then in other times, hearing what you just said before, it's so rewarding to hear that. And to be honest, it's a selfish act. And I always enjoyed those moments where it comes back full circle and I can hear something like you said.
Yeah, it's funny how it's a selfish act. When I first heard charity is a gift to give yourself,
yeah,
it kind of hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're like, fuck, have I been fake this whole time?
Yeah. And then I heard someone recently came on and told me a quote by Denzel Washington that said, being selfless is the most selfish thing you can do. Yeah. And then I really understood, it's a biological feeling of reward for your acts of kindness.
On the lowest level, it's an endorphin I'm getting back.
Yeah.
And I realized that at the time that I met you was probably on the back end of the worst part of my life, and I was preparing to go to jail. I knew I was going to go to jail. So ironically, I had this really calm feeling about whatever was going to happen. I just kind of knew that I wanted to help people out, and from where I'd been.
Well, I understood that in that chapter in my life too. You weren't being open about the idea that, I'm going to go to jail, all these situations, because you were just there to help, in my perspective, to help guide us and train us and do all these things. But based on the stories we were having and all the laughs and things like that, it kind of comes across like, oh yeah, fuck, these guys had fun before, you know what I mean? And now he's obviously changing, and for a young person, that's so relatable, because you want to be like, not rebellious, but you want to be curious and experimental and go out and have fun. And
We always want to see how far you can swim.
Yeah.
And what that cost comes. And what I learned along the process is that's a heavy cost, and that could come at the cost of death, could come at the cost of jail, or could come up to the cost of social suicide. But you really, I guess it's your obligation to see how far you can swim and find a balance. But I think through the process of all them things, I had different paradigm shifts of how I structured my mind and what I thought was right or wrong. And I've probably had 3 changes since getting out of jail, and I've probably had 7 before going in and a couple in there. So it's always weird, these state of minds that you're in. But it's, I guess when you've gone through the process, it's easy to identify somebody at the beginning of it, you know?
Yeah.
And I know my stories entice people in because of the fun and the money and the women and whatever it was. But the harsh reality is I'd just been on the bad end of it all. But holistically, when you look at it, alhamdulillah, I've been on the greatest end. I'd come through with my life during a period where my crew was getting knocked left, right and centre. Through boys were doing double digits in jails, and it was so bad. Boys were turning on each other or turning informant. And I had done my couple of years. I didn't know it at the time. I thought, you know, the world was going to change forever. But I'd done my couple of years and then got out of it and been in a position where I could look back on it and be like, fuck, that was a blast.
Yeah.
Not a blast as in I enjoyed every moment, because there was extremely dark moments, but I guess I achieved the things that I wanted, which was being a young kid with nothing. I just wanted all the material stuff, which everyone had. And to some extent, I got it all and had fun with it and played it with it all. And then all of its meaning was taken away, which I'm so happy happened.
Yeah. It's always going to be time that gives you the perspective. You're never going to be in the moment and have the realization that, like, oh, this is the moment where I need to, you know, or everything I've done has led me to this moment.
Yeah.
It's only until a few moments later that you can look back and it all makes sense.
Yeah.
And faith is definitely something that I'm going to come back and constantly relate to through this episode, because not only has it been a constant reoccurring topic, but I've enjoyed having him as well. I'm still on my journey, and I'm a high believer. I have faith.
Yeah.
But I just find other people's faith to be just as interesting as mine, you know?
Yeah.
I have been on social media as well a lot lately, because I am reaching out to try and tackle new guests. What I am noticing as well, that my guest that came on a couple of weeks ago, that I should call him my mate. Yeah, my mate Aaron came on, and he said that you only have to be a couple steps above to be able to reach down and help someone up. But I feel like you still have to have relation to the person reaching down. You know, if you don't feel like you are the same as this guy in many different fields of goals or dreams or even situations, and the hand coming down kind of feels like it's not,
you'll never be appreciated.
Yeah, you can't appreciate it because there's no relation to it. But there's guys who I have coming on in the future and that I'm in messaging, and I've noticed a big trend in like people who have gone through bad times, gone through either jail or depression or anything along the realm of suffering, and now they're impactful on the youth, and they're going to juvenile centers, and they're going to the tapes, and they're doing talks and things like that. And that's what we need the most out of anything.
100%. But then also too, to play devil's advocate, to be on my side, like for a period of time I was a lifeguard. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't remember that, no.
And I learned a very valuable lesson there, was that if you're going to save somebody who's drowning, you approach them in a defensive position. So you approach them prepared to kick them in the face, because they're going to be out of their mind. Potentially, not always. You might help them, but there's a small percentage of people that are going to freak out and drag you down with them. And what I've learned is that life is very similar with helping people. Some people aren't in the right position, and like you said, you give them the handout and they'll never truly appreciate it, or they'll take it for advantage. Other people are just drowning so hard, and it's so nuanced to say what's right or wrong, but other people are drowning so hard, you've really got to weigh up whether it's your best investment to help them or not. It's always good to help, but at what cost? Because they're emotionally going to pull you down. They're going to talk shit about you. They financially might drag you down, and all these other aspects all come at a cost, which later on now in life I'm weighing up when I decide to give my time or energy to people.
Yeah, that makes sense, and it relates to that saying that you can't help someone that doesn't want to help themselves as well.
And no good deed goes unpunished, I've learned.
Yeah, I struggle with that so much. I hate, and I still haven't come to terms with it, because, you know, if I know anything, it's that we choose to find the proof in whatever we choose to believe anyway. So if I don't accept the fact that you can't help someone that doesn't want to help themselves, maybe there is still that light that shows that anyone is able to help anyone.
Maybe, or internally you don't have hard enough borders.
Yeah, that's definitely a fact anyway. That definitely goes to play in it. And the fact that I haven't got hard enough borders is giving me that light, it's, but it is true. And that's why I find that being able to relate to someone is the best way to be able to help someone.
I think it's probably one of the most important. It's not only the best way to help somebody, it's the best way to move forward in this life. It's the best way to make business. It's the best way to make sales. It's the best way to make contacts. It's probably your best marketing tool that you could get.
Yeah, it's true. And because I always think about the fact that we are all just one sharing, you know what I mean? We whether you want to go to the extent of like, we are one celestial being just spread out across 8 billion different individuals, or the fact that there is something that biological that connects us together.
On a quantum level.
Yeah, on a quantum level. We have these feelings of relation to help us progress because it's the human race. We are all one, you know what I mean? There's nothing we can do to change it. So the closer you get to other people, it is the closer you are getting to yourself.
No doubt. I 100% agree. And then even to go on to that another level, we're kind of like these just receptive beings picking up the cymatic energies of the universe, and we're experiencing life for God all differently.
On the topic of God then, from this level, I'm excited to go down it, but I'm just going to try not to go down it too quickly then, because I'm starting to understand you might have a similar understanding to what I believe the word God means. So I will come back to that shortly on, but I wanted to touch base on, first of all, fighting, because we did mention it. And I'm curious, we'll get into like what your history has been like to lead you up to wherever you might be training now. I know that you had a fight at the end of last year back in the ring again, but what has fighting and training played a role in your life?
Probably just discipline. I learned early on that when I was trying to do something great, whatever it was, that when I got to the end of it, there was like a weird depression feeling. Almost regardless if it was saving for a house or training for a fight or something great, I found it was the journey that was the best part of it. And so with fighting, don't get me wrong, I love to win. I didn't win my last fight, but what I realized is just during the fight camp, I'm the best version of myself. So whenever I'm working towards something or training hard or sacrificing, those are some of the happiest moments of my life. And I am my best because I train my best. I work the best. I'm the best to my wife. I'm clear-minded. I'm healthy. So I'm just the best version of myself. And then making a goal so hard that you put your whole life into it and then achieve it, there's something rewarding in it. And I'd probably argue that now seeing a lot of things in life, this is probably the only things that will truly make you happy is task completion, achievement, and success in your own boundaries or in your own field. So I personally think that everyone should at some point know what it feels like to have a fight, to be in the ring, or just to work so hard towards something that you feel good. Like I probably wasn't going to go back. I know I was going to always go back, but I never went pro. Like I was semi-pro back then, but I never actually gone pro. So it was always one of them things I wanted to do. And I probably wouldn't have gone back just because, alhamdulillah, things were doing well. I've been successful in all my ventures, as many as could be. But I watched that Israel Adesanya fight where he beat that guy who'd like followed him around and just Pereira just destroyed him in all avenues. And at the end of the fight, he said this thing. He's like, "Man, I truly, truly wish that all of you could feel what this feels like someday."
Yeah.
And that just really hit me. I was like, "Bro, he's so right. Like all of us, especially young men, should have that feeling of greatness, in some aspect. Because I don't, other than being religious and a few other things and having kids, like for us, there's probably not much more in life.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Just work every day?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's great if you're doing that to provide for your family. But I still think if you were to only to do that, then you'd be missing something in your life, and it'll manifest in other ways.
It's almost like a level of confidence, because I feel like, as for me personally, that I do notice in the people around me as well, as a man, you never feel good enough. You're aiming to be good enough. You might be able to prove that you're at least good enough to show up to the occasion, but it's still not enough.
No.
It's the chase of pursuit. And it is points that I noted down earlier as well in the pursuit that I've noticed that you've taken on in your life. But it's never going to be good enough. And I'm coming to terms with the fact that it might never be good enough.
I think that's a healthy way to think, but
yeah,
always think that you can achieve greatness, but you've never achieved your potential is like a healthy paradigm to live in.
It is. I think so too. I think that knowing, and because someone asked me a question maybe 10 episodes ago saying like, so how do you know when you're going to be the man? I think the question might have been in regards to being a father. It might have been in regards to something, but it was how do you know when you are the man?
Yeah.
And it took me a second, but I went, I won't be but that is the man. You know what I mean? That's as far as we can get in our human capabilities as becoming something that and I guess it kind of relates to faith again, knowing that there is a version of existence that is the greatest, but knowing that you won't ever be able to be it.
I think being that self-aware is...
Yeah. It's a crazy pursuit, the act of self-progression. And I will come back to it. But in terms of fighting, how old were you when you started training for the first time?
I think about 14, 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how was it always consistent for a certain amount of time?
Yeah, it was a deep need. So
Okay.
I'd hanging around the streets of Rivo and Blacktown, and I was quite larger. I hadn't really had to fight that many times. I got jumped when I was younger, and I remember I was sitting at Blacktown Station. Something that I actually did when I was young and drunk. I did something, so I deserved this bashing. And this group came up to me, and one was the main guy, and I just got absolutely flogged. And all my mates were around too, and nobody jumped in. And at that time, all I wanted was this gang life. I was like, my boys. And this group came up, and the group was big enough that they just told all the boys, everybody step back, and they just come over and just absolutely touched me up.
Yeah.
And I just still remember getting whacked with these hits, just bang, bang, bang. And I'm like, wow, this is what it feels like. And I just got so depowered. After it, I remember getting angry and we went to their school with knives, just dumb shit. And I never got to, I was trying to avoid the core thing was that, I don't really know how to fight. I've, like every other kid, thrown a couple of combos in the shower and I'm the man, but I'd never really, I'd beaten a few people in just some random fights, but I'd never had anyone just go, boom, square up and dus. So that just ate away at me. And I just went to Fight Ride in Blacktown.
Yeah, okay.
Was that Fight Ride then? Yeah, I went to Fight Ride in Blacktown.
On Sunny Holt.
Yeah, after that, I left with Greg Foley, and I just started training every day, non-stop, just trying to fill this urge up. And just slowly you get filled up. You go through a bad stage as a kid, because if you're coming from that, you go through an abuse of power where you become skilled and you're big, and the psychological aspect and understanding of fighting hasn't caught up yet.
Yeah.
You know, but
Definitely.
there was just a need for me, like this deep, dark feeling of inadequacy, never being strong enough or fit enough or in it, and I just used that for years and years and years until I got to a good place.
Yeah, I think for me it's very similar without the same situation and circumstances where the chase of wanting to become a proficient at least.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how big my ego gets. I
Yeah.
still know at the end of the day, I'm not a great fighter.
Yeah.
Not great.
Yeah.
I am confident in my abilities to be able to defend myself and
Yeah.
people around me, but I still act like I might be better than that.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I feel like growing up, my training was very on and off, and it 8-year period of,
Yeah.
2 years on, a year off, and then whatever. I got to a point where I eventually found what I had been looking for without knowing it. It was just, I want to be best. I want to be the best. And
Yeah.
this, that. I'm at least better than my mate who I'm training with.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
one day I'm going to be able to beat my coach.
Yeah.
It's that. But the truth behind it all is I didn't feel good enough.
Yeah.
The person I am today, if I had have known, it might have been beneficial. But I feel like being younger, just feeling like I want to be better for that sole purpose. I want to be respected. I want to be adored. I want people to fear me. It's a good enough reason to push you in the beginning.
Yeah.
But what I found now, and my days of training are nowhere near complete. I have plenty of goals into trying to progress, but I at least now feel confident in the fact that it's like, I don't want to try and get better for anyone else anymore. You know what I mean? I'm confident with where I am today.
Yeah.
So that was a big lesson. I feel like training played a big part in coming to that realization that if people didn't train, might not ever get to.
I can't imagine what it feels like. Somebody was explaining to me the other day, and it's just so foreign to me now. Like, how much more anxieties and problems come along with not being able to fight. Like, I can't imagine you walked into a room and there's 100 people, 1,000 people in there, and they can all beat you. not that you want to go and bash everyone, but as a
Yeah.
man, I think it's a part of your reptilian brain or whatever. You walk into a room and you're like, I can take him. And him. Or you're like, I'm in the top 5 in his
and
room.
then when you
Unless there's
can't-
some weird bloke with some weird crazy ability, like
Yeah,
I'm right
yeah.
up there. And it's a comfortable feeling, and then you can be nice to people. And I
Yeah.
think, imagine how I would feel if I walked into a room and every person in that room could beat me, and then what type of person I would become because of those insecurities. You know, would I be too loud? Would I be too aggressive? Would I swear too much? Would I try to take control of the conversation? Would I manipulate handshakes? All the little psychological aspects that people do when they're weak because there's an internal need to project the opposite. All them things, all them insecurities I'd be riddled with. What an ugly way to live.
Oh, dude. And I kind of can put myself in that person's shoes because, you know, I've always grown up a very small, skinny kind of kid.
Yeah.
And I had to grow into confidence to get to that position. But you don't feel like you want to try and manipulate the room to try and, you know, but you're more like a suck ass, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that is the worst part.
That's
of all
another
of it.
part of manipulation. But if you're being a suck ass and you're being over nice so people will like you, that's manipulation. That's
Yeah,
just
true.
that's just not a main or physical type. It's a different type of manipulation, like a woman would manipulate.
Yeah, that's very true. But yeah, that feeling, to be honest, if anyone is feeling that feeling, that's a good enough reason to get
Yeah.
at least confident. You know what I mean? I can't think of any better way than physical training to become confident.
Doesn't matter what you are. If you're a salesman, you should do it. If you're pitching things, you should do it. Doesn't matter what if you're in security, you should do it. Doesn't matter what your field, whether it be the physical or the mental aspect of it, will make you a better person.
Yeah, I
It'll
agree.
probably make you a nicer person. I would say.
I agree. It's that same great saying that I believe Jordan Peterson started the idea with, and that's that you should be able to become a
Yeah.
beast, but tame and become friends with it.
So the quote that he takes from is a biblical quote that it said, "And those with sheathed swords will rule the earth," which means those that have swords that put them away. And I think the argument is that if you were just a nice person, and not capable of violence, then you're not really a peaceful person. You're just being. Whereas if you are capable of extreme or any type of violence and you're choosing to be nice or peaceful, then that's an active choice, and that's just not you being who you are.
Yeah, that's free will at its finest, isn't it? Yeah. I always think back. Have you ever watched Naruto?
Yeah.
I always think back to Naruto having that nine-tailed demon fox inside of him that
Yeah.
he does become friends with. And
Yeah.
I use that as a perfect cartoon metaphor for how anyone should live their life.
Most of the main characters in anime have been very similar, like Goku.
Yeah.
You know, they've all had this beast inside them that they were controlling, but they were just extremely nice people, and it just showed that contrast of when they switch. But it also does imply some level of non-control to that beast inside of us. And I think all of us get to an understanding that we are half good and half evil. We have positive thoughts and negative thoughts, and all that weird stuff in your subconscious brain is you, and you should process it and become one with it and be aware of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I noticed that you said that discipline was the main part of the entire thing you learnt through the active training.
Yeah.
And discipline is the one thing that I take away the most from any religious gospel.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter what religion you choose to follow.
Yeah.
There is a set of parameters in which you should live your life by.
Yeah.
It might be things that you aren't allowed to do or things that you have to be able to do. But I see the main overall message that they're giving out is follow a discipline, you know, stay true to one thing. Don't let anything break it. If something comes along, readjust, regroup, go back to the drawing board, go back to that thing. And I think that discipline, as you said, leads to one of the only things in happiness as a man, which could be, you know, a overall reward, children, things like this. But discipline is so important, I believe, biologically, because it prepares you for the future in which you are going to commit to something. So it might be raising kids or having a wife, all these things. But if you have the practice in which you've been doing to yourself, like no matter what, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to the gym today. I'm going to get up and go for a run this morning. I'm going to go to the sauna on Saturday, whatever it might be. You're getting ready to, I don't feel like it, but
You gotta do it.
I need to change the kid's nappy, bro. I don't
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like it, but I'm going to fucking take the missus out or buy flowers, you know.
Yeah.
It's discipline is, in my opinion, the most important thing that anyone can go through in their life.
Yeah, and consistency.
Consistency, yeah.
I think this side of the hill, like the metrics are a bit different. Like until you've achieved that great success, it's like the journey and the process and all those type of things are just so important and rewarding is where you'll get your good feeling from. And then on the other side of the hill, I don't think many of us know. Like, for example, we were watching Will Smith in his interview the other day. He's reverted to Islam as well.
I didn't know that. Wow.
And it's like he said, I would truly wish everybody to get to this position where they bought everything in the world, you know, and they've had everything they ever wanted. And then is your core structure, does it stay the same once you hit the other side of the hill? Is what I've been thinking about lately. Because everything I'm doing now is pre the hill. Don't get me wrong, like I'm successful by any metric I would have set to myself in jail. Back in jail, I just said, all I want to get out, own my own house, work, get a good job, and I'll be happy. Alhamdulillah, I got all that, and I am happy. But there's a need for more, and the metric's always changing. So what I'm understanding now is that to appreciate the journey, stay disciplined, and then keep doing those little rewarded behavior things where I get benefits from completing tasks. But then I'm also worried about, like, maybe relate it back to when you're the man, of what happens when you get to that point and you achieve complete success. Do you ever actually achieve it? Because any point in time, somebody could look at my life and be like, oh, you did that, you did that, you did that. And they were good. I'm like, yeah, I did. But once I'm done it, it was like, oh, that's it, move on. You never sit and bask and be like, wow, I did that.
Yeah.
You know, so will there be a point where you're like, wow, I've made it? And if there is that point, that's a dangerous place to be, because then what happens the moment you say I've made it? I'm sure there'd be some weird depressive feelings after that, knowing that you've completed.
Yeah, now what? You know, you're lost. Because I feel like one of the things we're all doing is we're lost looking for our purpose. That's what everyone's doing. It's why we have these pursuits and goals and dreams, and why everyone's different, because everyone has their own purpose, but they're lost. That's what
we're looking for. But are we doing that, or are we just still running in the same circles of when we were kids and we said to our mum, I'm bored, and she said, all right, got you a video game. All right, played that, mum, I'm bored. All right, you got your soccer ball, mum, I'm bored. And you just kept getting bored, finding things to do. You did that thing enough times till you were bored of that. And now you're constantly going through life looking for good feelings, and you'll get bored of every single one of those feelings. Yeah. And it's just a constant thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never thought about it as deep as that level. But as you said before, when you feel like you did get to a certain level of achievement, a bit of a depression feeling comes afterwards too at the end of it, and you realize it wasn't just the journey. Yeah. I'm trying to take advice from everyone who is saying that people might ask me, as someone who's coming on the podcast tomorrow, he said, what's your end goal for the podcast? I just want to know. And it's like, don't ask me that, bro. Like, I can't have an end goal, because the end goal, if I get to it, means I'm finished. My goal is just to be able to do an episode a week. Yeah. Until it's not possible anymore, you know, for whatever reason that is. But I feel like if we have an end goal is important, but unless you're inside a realm of a set of rules already, like the UFC, there's only a certain level of there's only number one, you know what I mean? You can't go past number one. Yeah. Then I get to aim for that. Yeah. But by not having a end result in which once I achieve this, then I'll be happy, then you can really start to understand that it is just about the journey. You know what I mean? You're not doing it because I have to get to this position of number one, or I want 1 million subscribers, or I need a fucking $100 million. Because then you're suffering the entire time. If you can come to terms with the fact that you're going to be suffering and you're never going to be satisfied with the end result, you actually start to enjoy the times where it's like, all right, another fucking 8 hours on the computer today. You know what I mean? It's like another 16-hour shift or whatever it may be, because there is a reward system that gets rewarded for your effort, I don't think it's for your achievement. You know what I mean? I feel like we get that natural feeling of, I feel good because I've gotten through the day and ticked off every task. It's not, if that task was already ticked off by someone else, we wouldn't have that feeling if it's a good day. It's us who have gone through the effort that's made us feel so good. So I'm going to try and take what you just said too, where you felt like it was all about the journey, and continue applying it to my own life. And I'm not listening to the guy who's coming over tomorrow. I'm not having an end goal for the podcast.
I wouldn't definitely agree with that. Like, your state of thought will always change. There's nothing wrong with having an extreme goal. I've learned it makes, like, say your goal was, I need to make 100,000 subscribers or whatever it is, you would end up doing better than if you didn't set that goal. But what I do agree with is that leaving it kind of open means more creative fluidity and more enjoyment in it. I do understand that. I think it doesn't matter what anybody says, man. You got to build a structure in your own head.
Yeah, I know.
Because nobody's right and nobody's wrong.
Yeah,
and everybody's faking it.
Yeah. I heard you say that actually on Nick's podcast.
Yeah.
Everybody's faking it, and I thought that was the first time I ever had that realization. Fuck yeah, we're all faking it.
And not even that, to another level. Like, everybody is faking it till they make it. And look at any of these financial investors that we look into as like people to look up to. The best financial people, the Trumps and rudder have all gone bankrupt. They've shut this company down. They flipped that. I'm getting to a point now where it's like, I'm really understanding that fake is the new real, and that maybe nothing really, not to get into like some weird quantum physics things of nothing really ever existed, but everything was a lie. Especially with all these new P. Diddy stuff that's coming out. Everyone was fake. Everyone was a homosexual devil worshipper to some extent. Maybe not everyone. The ones that weren't got killed. And potentially even the ones we looked up to. Like, I don't want to say it too much, but I built half my life around Tupac. Potentially he was P. Diddy's homosexual lover.
Yeah. And
we were just all fooled into... And if that's the case, everything's a lie. And then to what do we have? Everything that I am now is built up of these nostalgic memories of growing up and thinking this is left and this is right and this what I am. But it all could be fake. If it is all fake, then what are we left with? Like,
Yeah.
the whole industry is more than likely fake. Oprah Winfrey is probably a devil worshipper.
Yeah.
It's to a point where it's that bad. It's like, man, what is real? What is fake? And what I've noticed in social media is fake sells.
And what? Sorry to cut you off, but what part of fake sells in your opinion? Like how do you say
people
fake sell?
Fake people get traction.
Yeah. Oh, as in like they're acting a life that isn't actually theirs to create more views. Is that what you mean by that?
In some extent, yeah, it's nuanced on every level. But then there are just a lot of fake people that aren't real, that don't even adhere to what they say, and they just know this is socially the right thing to say.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, and just in all aspects of, even on a cosmetic level, the women don't look like they actually. The men are the same. The men are all acting harder than they are. Everybody is faking it to a normal, healthy level. But then to another level is that I don't think that many things are real or many people are real.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to know that, and it is comforting to know that we are, what's the word I want to use? We are almost okay with being who we are, knowing the fact that everyone that we look up to aren't as high on a pedestal as we want them to be.
Yeah, there might be a good feeling.
It does create a bit more relation.
Yeah.
You know, and it shows us that there is no difference between the multi-millionaires, the business owners, and the influencers than there are to me.
And I think new age social media is taking that curtain away from what we used to think were celebrities or the people out there. And then you've got mid-range, and then, yeah, everybody is the same.
Because anyone nowadays can have anything between 10,000 subscribers and 100,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Literally everywhere I look now, I'm starting to bump into people from back in the day of school who are doing such niche little business ideas, and they might have $75,000 followers on their main account. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy, dude. Like back in the day, if I looked at someone with 75,000, I'm like, oh,
my God, you made it.
But
don't get me wrong, people are buying followers too. So you don't know. You really don't know anymore.
Yeah. It's hard to look at it from a terms of followers to success, isn't it? It's hard to break that barrier, but it is in my head at least still a level of success, you know. It is. Yeah. But yeah, I don't want to think about the fact that people are buying that followers.
Yeah. And look, we're in a day and age now of small businesses and everyone doing well, which is amazing. And like you said, there's so many little niche. I've got a friend that does Islamic calendars and stuff, and boom, they've got a little niche and they've blown up. And it's so important to get that. And I think coming back to that, everybody's relatable, everybody's real, everybody's fake. It's like people are so hesitant, especially even I was, and I'm sure you would be in the same position with this. It's like we're hyper fixated on like 20, 30 people we knew growing up and how they would feel about what I'm doing, or they think that's, would I be embarrassed, or they know, like we're hyper fixating on 20, 30 people, especially me selling clothes. Like, what are these 20, maybe it's a bit more, 50, 100 people from my hometown going to think about me when my market is literally like 6.8 billion people I'm trying to market to in the world, and I'm so focused on what these 10, 20 people are going to think about me.
Yeah.
And like you said, you've seen so many people just make success in their own lane.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I am now. It's just like, it's interesting too, because I've found my small little lane where I can make a bit of money and do my thing authentically.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that some people don't like that, you know?
Yeah, and that actually is a good segue into the next conversation I want to bring up, and we can relate it back to this as well with pursuit and things. But before we get into the 5 letters that are always written across your chest, all right, Krude, before we get into that, and just speaking on that, the marketing side of things is very impressive.
Yeah.
Whenever I see you, I see Krude. Like, it's great.
My
great
marketing
branding.
budget is zero.
Yeah, yeah.
I did a couple of paid ads last year, but people look at all the stuff we're doing and like, oh, you must have paid this person a lot. You must have paid that. Like, my marketing budget is zero. And
Wow.
everything that I've been doing has been through association of friends or acquaintances or people that I've worked with or done something for in the past.
Yeah, wow. Well, it's awesome. It's awesome to see. Before we get into this business adventure you're going down, what experience have you had in work before this? Like, what jobs or careers have you tried and realized that's not for me? And
Everything.
Everything?
Bro, I was a lifeguard. I was a security guard. I worked for the Navy. I worked in nightclubs. I've done like cash in transit work. I worked at Macca's for like a week. I've owned every business you could probably think of. You know, I started my first gym at like 1920, I think, at Reverting. That was just before, a couple of years before that gym.
Wow.
Events. I've had events, event management, clubs. I've tried everything to not have to go to work every day, really. And then I've gone to work every day. I did my electrical apprenticeship up to the third year, around then. And then I got into cranes for a little bit. Every job I've had, I've been trying to do less and get paid more. And that's been my little thing. And I think I got as far as not as far as you can. I'm sure you go high. But I got high enough to realize that it doesn't matter. I got into cranes, you know, earning $5K a week. And got into that lifestyle and then just realized I can't do this forever. I cannot. Nothing wrong with going to work every day, but I just realized that once I hit that cap of the salary, there's no more to be made, and what cost it comes at mentally doing something I didn't want to do, you know. So now, coming off that, I was electrical apprentice going into jail, and then did a lot of thinking in jail, and it's like, man, I don't want to be climbing in roofs and under houses. It's just not for me. And I followed the path down. When I come home, I got into cranes and I got to watch everyone on the job site. And I was making arguably some of the best money on the job site. And I watched everyone from start to finish. Because in jail, I just used to watch people. And it was so good because you got people from different walks of life and junkies and crackheads and normal people and criminals. I just like watching people. And I used to do that on the job site. And I ran every job to completion in my head. So labourer, sweet, run it all the way through. You get your own labour hire company. Arguably one of the best things. Any trade, yep, you run it all the way through. You get your trade, you start your company, you move on, you get contracts, you subby out. Every subby's been fucked in the last couple of years through COVID and just builders not paying anyway. And that's where I was with electrical. We had our company, we weren't getting paid. The builder, he makes great money, sweet, but he's depressed, bold, fat, unhappy, drinks coke, gets on the drugs on the weekend, smashes alcohol, goes. Everyone is unhappy. There are some few people that have just found, and they're probably truly happy, like they found their little system, little way of life, and they're set.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, and they are probably truly happy. But everybody else is depressed, you know? So I just started looking into things that I could do. All I want to do now is automotive business that I can make money with. So I got into vending machines, which do really well. They're still hard work. I maintain them all, but they're residual or passive income, you know. So I'm just looking for more things like that at the moment. Then I travel a lot for China for Krude, where I look at other products that I could buy and sell as well.
Wow.
I think I tried as many businesses as you can, and I realized that I didn't like doing a lot of stuff and I would never be happy. And if I would have followed current trends, that cost of living is going up, housing is going up, everything's going up, fuel's going up, tax, everything is going up, but wages are staying the same. Even if I say my really, really good job and I run that through in enough time, I'll be poor or I'll be dependent on the government again. The only way that I can see making reasonable money in this current climate is buying or selling commodities.
I had to come to terms recently with something that you did from a bird's eye view, literally sitting in the crane, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm assuming that's where you started to run through these ideas of what it would be like to go on through this guy. But I recently had to come to terms with the fact that as men in construction, we start off on minimal wages and we slowly through our apprenticeship earn more and more. So we have a reward system for our efforts in continuing to work.
Yeah.
Then once you get to the next stage of trade, you get another big gap and then you can see the tradies around you. It's like, right, that's the next step. That's the next step. Once you do get to a high enough position, which I consider myself to be in, where there isn't that many more mountains to climb, I'm pretty close to the top.
Yeah.
I've decided, right, it's overtime that I need to base my life on. So now to earn the more money, I'm going and giving away more time.
Yep.
Then when I realized, right, I'm comfortable spending 12 to 14 hours a day if I want to give myself the weekends.
Yep.
That's earn penalty rates. So I've been doing up until a week ago night shift for a year and a half.
Yep.
I have not had a break from nights. I've given up every night.
Yep.
Then you ruin your sleeping routine, all these problems that come with that. But then when I'm in that position and it's like, right now, what's the next step I can do?
Yeah.
And I finally got to a point in which I couldn't control. My situations led me to here where I had a big reality check and it was like, I'm fixated on one way to make money. And so many men never have that realization.
It's all through wages.
It's all through wages within the trade that you've learned, which for just as much as I think fighting is a great thing for everyone to do, I think trade's just as important.
Oh, in Australia, it's the best things you can get into.
I think not just for wages and a stability and a comfort to always fall back on, which everyone says, but it's also for the lessons you learn in self-development and, you know, being able to do things with your hands is super necessary anyway.
Well, you're worth your knowledge.
Yeah, I think so.
Regardless of whatever that is.
Yeah, yeah.
And you get paid accordingly for your knowledge.
Yeah. But having that realization that like, okay, so if I just stop chasing the money for a second and I come back to the baseline and I just do my 38 hours a week, I have so much more free time that if I don't invest it into my 38 hours making me the money, now let's invest that into another avenue. You know, that was a massive
But we never get taught
check.
any of that.
Never.
We never get taught in school, taxes, how to make money, companies, how to register a company. It's on purpose, you know, whether it's a conspiracy. Maybe for Australia, we can't say that, but in America, their schooling system was founded by people that controlled the automotive industry, the petrol industry, and the medical industry. Yeah. They wanted, I think it was a JP Morgan or Rockefeller said, I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers. So in some way, we're all designed to fit in. We go to school, we wear the same school clothes. When we want to talk, we put our hand up. It's all on purpose, you know, and is to get us ready for these jobs. Yeah. Which isn't completely bad because we do need workers, but
there's no avenue for the people who want more. You know what I mean?
And they say that the people who got A's are going to be working for the people who got B's and C's. And they're all going to be working for the kids that got E's and F's.
Yeah, wow.
You know?
Wow, that's a mad thing to look at. I love that.
Because really, really smart people, if they're really good at something, that's what they say in work. Like, you should never be too good at your job because you'll never get promoted. Yeah. If you're really good at your job, like you're just really smart, you're going to stay there. The boss is going to be like, perfect, you're killing it. Yeah, yeah. You know, it's the different type of thinkers and they get rewarded.
And I get it from a business perspective. No business is going to give you those ideas that like, and help guide you into the idea that like, you know, you don't need to be giving all your time away to the business, but everyone in any business, they're like, I want to earn more money. Like, well, if you want to earn more money, this is what you have to do. You know, like I'm going to provide you the platform in which you can make more money, but I can never tell you that you have to find your own platform.
My advice in that actual thing is do what I did, and that's sweet. You found somewhere where you work, and you wouldn't want all of your efforts and that to go in vain because the only thing that we're building in this life is our respect and character, and off that you'll receive more things in the future. But if you do work for a company and you want to make more money, then figure out how you could make that company more money. You know, could you get a part for them that they need from somewhere? Could you source a material? Could you get them a new contract? Could you, and then put a value on that? Not in a rude way, but it's like, oh man, I've got this contract. You could throw me something back, or could I have 5% moving forward? Or what I did was, for my boss at the time, who's now my business partner, I identified a place where when we got all these contracts, I can put vending machines down, and boom, 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 and I found a way to make him more money and make me more money. So I guess in that first aspect, before you go and look at all the different possible ways in the world, how could you vertically integrate in the company that you're in to make more money?
That's great advice, actually, because I heard a quote recently by Patrick Bet-David saying, before I decided to get rich, I learned that I was never going to do it on my own.
Yeah.
I had to bring people up with me in doing it. And
Yeah.
I thought, fuck, that makes sense. You know,
Yeah.
for whatever weird survival of the fittest species we are, why does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, if we're all about our own survival, how does the idea of sharing, and this is things that I'm trying to work out in myself, how do these things make sense? And I think it's because of the fact that we are all one and we are all sharing, that in order, if I want to get successful, let's find other ways to help other people get successful in the
Yes.
process.
Yeah.
Which is all, I like that advice. That's great advice.
Which actually brings me back to what I forgot is that you're 100% right. I do agree with you that we are all one or experiencing things, but there's different levels of consciousness, I think.
Okay.
And I think you understand that
I
when
do,
you see
yeah,
some
definitely.
people like some, and nothing wrong with them because they might truly be happy, because if ignorance is bliss and knowledge is a burden, you know, there are some people that are just generally happy in their circles, but there's definitely levels of consciousness and it's when we're talking about helping people up, I don't always try to help them up physically into a new job, but maybe elevate them to a different mental capacity. But then probably arguably there's some people that you just like, I probably can't help
Yeah,
you
I
know,
know.
unless you can self-reflect and understand that your behaviors are based off your traumas or whatever's going on in your head. You're on a level that we probably can't get to.
Yeah, yeah. And to be honest, I do have those moments all the time where I'm just listening to other people make the decisions they have,
Yeah.
knowing that they have the information in front of them to change it,
Yeah.
and they're not,
Yeah.
then it's like, they're the reason they're not going forward. There's nothing that anyone can do to help this person
And they
anymore.
might say one thing, but subconsciously that's a decision that they made because they're probably scared of change.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I am honestly fear of change. Do you have any fear of change?
I got a fear of staying the same.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Fuck, that hit me.
That's
yeah.
probably a harder hit.
That is a harder hit.
Because
Yeah.
I've developed so many times along the way. I'm so thankful for who I am. And sometimes I look back at who I was. I'm like, man, how were you in that mindset? But I'm so glad that I'm not. But then I look back into the reasons of why I was, and it's like, well, it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that hit me too. The fear of staying the same.
Yeah.
Coming back to where we were and why I went down this path of prior jobs to starting your business that you're at now with Krude.
Yep.
I don't really know how I want to tackle this, but from what I can see looking at it is it's very heavily influenced in Australian music culture, you know, and I believe that's by choice, from
Yep.
your choice. But from as far back as I can remember, you've always had a bit of a personal insight into it anyway. I remember, you know, you being in music videos when I was young,
Yeah.
and I watched it probably years before I met you, and then, you know, we'll do it at training and stuff, and then I might just chuck on an old thing I used to listen to. I'll be
Yeah.
watching like Taken Away or something.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm just like,
shout out Cursor.
yeah, I'm just like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? How is that possible? And then I'd talk to you about it, and you're like, yeah, he's my mate, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then years later, I'd see you in another video clip with another artist, and now it's the stage where I seen you in Queensland on stage, and
Yeah.
I'm like, so before we get into the business side of things, I want to know how have you been in the music industry? How has that come to life?
I think I just stayed true and got rewarded for it. And then a lot of things were just random or gifts from God. But growing up, we just had a group of mates, Forte, Two Loco, Head Hubbard, couple of DJs around that were all doing Aussie hip hop. And it was just so relative because, don't get me wrong, we were doing bad stuff, but we weren't out with Mac 10s doing drive-bys every night, driving in lowriders and Impalas. So it wasn't really relating to American hip-hop to an extent, but, we, you know, doing on such a smaller, different scales, hanging out at the station with lads and robbing this bloke for his shoes or this little urn or this, that. The occasional gun would be a crazy story in our world. It happened, but it wasn't like America. So it wasn't that relative. And at the time, Forte was rapping about what we were doing. Like, we were out on the street, and Head Hubbard at the time, we were out on the street doing low-level criminal activities, but just having fun, running amok. And the boys were encapsulating that and rapping about it, and it made sense and it was captivating. And I probably had some sort of, after a while, I struggle to listen to rap music now. If whether that's because they change the frequencies or I just don't like what they're saying. But I struggle to get a vibe with the American accent. And then when you hear these people rapping about the stuff you're doing, they're from the same houses, in the same accent, it was like, man, this is our music. And this was just coming off the back of, in the end of the 90s, early 2000s, everyone of dark complexion wanted to be American. They were wearing Chuck Taylors and Air Force Ones. And we were still lads from the area running around with TNs and shocks and stuff.
Yeah.
It was almost a symbol that you weren't active. When I seen a gangster dressing up with the fat hat and big shoes, I knew you weren't active because you weren't running from the cops.
So accurate, bro.
You weren't running from the cops in them shoes. But so it was coming to that point now where we just come off the back of Ja Rule and 50 Cent and Tupac, and it's like the American had such a strong hold on us that this subgenre was coming through. And at the time, I had a lot of African cousins that were still rapping in American accents, and they used to laugh at me and my mates. They used to laugh at, look at your mates, man. They sound funny, they sound weird, they look funny, and everyone used to tease my mates and that. And we would do shows with Forte. He was well known, but social media wasn't big. He was running a MySpace and a Bebo at the time.
Yeah.
So nobody knew about. Everyone would, it's Forte. But there'd be like 10, 15 people in the crowd because how do you tell people? There was no marketing, there's no advertising. Yeah. It was just one flyer that would hand out, you know. And so we did a lot of stuff. He was very active back then, and we were doing stuff with, I remember Cursor was the first one to blow up back then. And Fort was like, yeah, this is my boy, helped him out, he's blowing up. And, you know, and I was heavily involved in that lifestyle at the time. So I had a lot of boys around. So they're like, can you do security and whatnot? And that was, I guess, the start of it. And then years later, you just meet people along the way. And then a year later, I go to jail. Still, when I went to jail, I was still DJing for Forte. Just a couple of little shows. It was nothing. We did one with Bone Thugs and Harmony. But it wasn't big. And so I go to jail, and then 1-4 kicks off. And they do so much for the scene. Like, they blow it up.
Yeah, for sure.
So by the time we get out, all of these artists that were still good are now being respected for they're getting their value in fans and that. Forte's blowing up. Look at Enter. He's going through one of the biggest stages
for sure.
right now. All of these artists were becoming mainstream now almost. So and it was like I just kind of been plotted into that field where it's like, oh, you knew this person, you did that. And by that time, I'd done a lot of stuff with Cursor. Coming out of jail, we did a lot of stuff with Chilling It. And it was just
that's where I seen you with, and you were Chilling It,
And so by the time I'd come home, and I was with good boys. I was living in an apartment with them. They had the Lambo, the R8, the truck, the jet skis and all that. I didn't have nothing. I had a Toyota Camry. But every weekend I was out on the water with jet skis or on a helicopter with the boys or whatever. And I had all these artists hit me up. They're like, oh, can I get this car? Can I get this? And I kept giving it. I gave it to the brothers and they won. And there was a Hooligan Hess clip and a few others. You go back and look at them clips of like my boys on bikes and stuff. And I started realizing, man, how do I monetize this? And my first in the crane sitting around initial thought was, all right, sweet, I'll make a clothing brand. You know, G'd Up had done so well at the time, and he actually helped me out. Paco's, been very helpful. I was like, how do I monetize this? I'm like, sweet, take whatever you want, but you just got to wear my T-shirt.
Yeah.
And then it started from that.
Yeah, because that me having an understanding of, because I'm always trying to figure out the behind the scenes of culture, you know, I'm always trying to figure out what goes behind the scenes. Like, the impact that you've made, I feel like it came from what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Genuineness, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and hearing that sounds like it's not like it's luck because we can use the blessings, but it wasn't like you necessarily had this massive plan to how infiltrate it from the outside. Like you actually grew up a part of it.
Andrew Tate calls it perspicacity.
Perspicacity,
like having the ability to identify things and put them together, being like, oh, yep, that'll work. And I just did that a lot of times until it seemed fluid from the outside.
Yeah, wow. So would you say that you had the plan from the beginning or you just took advantage with perspicacity, and has it evolved into having more of a structured plan with Krude now?
Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's manifestation. So before, everything in my life before jail had been like, I'd done a couple of things, but I was like, I like DJing. I like traveling with the boys, going on tour. I used to manifest that. Like, well, we did one show at Bone Thugs and Harmony, which was bittersweet for me because there was a lot involved in it. But what I was doing is all I wanted was that DJing to be mad. I'm like, imagine if it was just us boys, Forte and that, and we're selling out and there's heaps of people. And that's all I wanted to be like, because we weren't doing it at the time. I'd be like, fuck, that would be perfect. That would be on my life. I even changed my Instagram to DJ Jungle J for a minute. And I'm like, bro, this can be me. This can be it. And I actually genuinely wanted it. I wanted it a lot. And even in jail, I even thought about it. Even though my priorities changed, I thought about it. And then years later, it was almost 10 years later, 10 years later, I got rewarded for manifesting that because that's all I wanted at the time. And so now I'm living in a state of receiving everything that I asked for back then, but my goals have changed.
Yeah.
I still want it. It's still mad. It's hectic.
Yeah.
But it's not my main priority to be DJing, even though traveling around with the boys is amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so they say be careful what you wish for. You know, if you want something hard enough, you'll probably get it.
Yeah. My nan used to say it to me a lot growing up, and none of it made any sense. You know, it was all about be careful what you wish. She told me stories once where, you know, there was a guy in my company that I work with, and he was just saying, man, I need a break. break. And then he went and breaks his leg.
Yeah.
You know, and then she goes, and there was another lady who was saying, oh, I want to be more open-hearted. And then she got open heart surgery. You know, she's telling me these things. And I'm just like, thinking to myself, like, okay, coincidence.
Yeah,
you know,
coincidence. That's very literal, but
that's coincidence, Nan. What are you talking about? Even my nan's, I love my nan. She's a full hippie, spiritual.
But it's true. It's true because I am now where I'm exactly where I'd planned, and everything I have now outside of jail is exactly what I'd planned. Oh man, I wish I just got out and started working and got a home and rada. So it does work, but then you change as well along the process. So.
Yeah. Your goals become different because you kind of are the same person. It's just you're in a different situation now.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear the word manifestation now, I think of the being a metaphor for ask and you shall receive. It's the exact same quotation.
The only reason I say that is to stay neutral, and manifestation is prayer.
Yeah, it is.
That's all we in Islam. When you understand the Arabic, that's basically all you ask for. Please protect me. Please protect my family. Protect me from evil spirits. Look after my business venture. Please help me financially succeed. Please give me enough money to provide for my family. You know, please keep me safe. Please keep my children safe. And saying it over and over again. When you break it down, that's all it is. And we're at a point in time in history where science and religion are converging in some. You know, they got the God particle and all the gaps in science. You can easily just plug religion into.
Yeah.
Even whatever you want to call it the Big Bang. Sweet, trace it back. Where did it come from? We must have come from somewhere. Oh, we banged from another parallel universe and we quantumly... All right, but there has to be... Everything we know is there has to be a start to it.
Yeah.
So we're at a weird place where it's all diverging.
Yeah, I think about that too. I think about the fact that we didn't have answers for anything, but we had terms help to best describe things we figured out along the way.
Mythology or whatever it was. Was the science back then.
Yeah, it was. And now we have tools of measurement to help us figure things out. And that led people away from belief because they have proof now.
Yeah.
But you're right. Now we're forming this middle line where we have now got scientific terms and explanation to explain the beliefs we've always had, you know?
Yeah, and even the tools of measurements are only accurate till you get to a certain point. Then you get down to the smallest level and a one's not a one, a zero's not a zero. A one could be fluctuating between multiple dimensions at any time, which brings you back to God anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's crazy, dude. It's crazy. The singularity is like what they believe that all humans are, is now a term used to describe an end result in human evolution, a singularity.
Yeah.
How is that any different than the idea of God? It's a singularity. You know? It's
bringing you back to 1.1 consciousness, one energy that controls everything. Or at one point in time, we were all the same organism that exploded.
It's madness. It's mad. I could go so deep for hours and hours on the idea of that topic, but just on Krude in itself, what's the next step? Like what? I won't get to that just yet. But like, what has been some of the best parts of like the most recent adventures you've gone through in Krude?
I think just the traveling has been awesome and meeting new people.
Mm-hmm. You came back from China. You said this week or last week?
Yeah, on Tuesday.
Yeah. So, what was the purpose of this trip?
Just to go over meet suppliers again and do stuff like that. During the process of doing stuff for Krude, I found other business ventures over there, so I just go over, meet as many suppliers and contacts as when I went to the Canton Fair for a bit, just to look at clothing and different stuff. Some of the highlights from Krude, really, it's just been a lifestyle and getting paid for it, you know. obviously we're still growing. We've got so many more places to go. But just being able to, I would just love that accolade of just being able to live and travel the world and do stuff I like to do off a homegrown brand. And always, probably some of the best bits were like the times that we gave back. You know, we did stuff with youth in the streets. We did stuff with Hawkesbury Helping Hands. We did stuff with heaps of charities and youth workshops and stuff like that. So those things have been very beneficial.
Yeah, for real. So you did mention before that, you know, you've had a bit of asking and helping from business like G'd Up before and Paco.
Yeah.
Was that something that you reached out to be like, oh, I've seen this get done before, I'm going to just do a cold call message? Or did you already have that relationship building up to that point?
Well, the G'd Up wasn't the first time I'd seen that happen. I don't think many of you remember there was an older brand called Untouchable Empire that he did with another guy I'm not going to mention. And I just remember at the time we were all young and they were doing that. And it was like, I loved the brand. Even though like it had nothing to do with me, I was like, there was just this feeling when you see a brand come from your area.
Okay.
And
So he came from your area.
Yeah, he's from around Penrith Ways. He did a brand out there. And for whatever reason, that didn't work out. And he started G'd Up. I just called him and I said, I'm looking at doing this, right. And he was just cool. He was like, yeah, man, I'll help you out. I'll give you a supplier or whatever.
Wow.
You know, they've been great. And I think they understand is it's like, man, this is such a big industry in an area. Like there's room, you know, like look at Lonsdale and Everlast.
Yeah.
I think they're both, you know.
I feel like they've fallen off a lot from what they used to be.
100%. Maybe not Lonsdale is staying a bit strong because Everlast sold out and went to Kmart and all that.
Yeah.
Whether that was good or bad, I don't know. Even Echo went there. But, you know, they're both brands, I think, coming out of the Bronx in New York, and they've got such a strong name.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So,
And we have had nothing but room for brands in clothing in Australia, haven't we?
Yeah.
Like you've got, obviously the lad scene took off the biggest one, you know, other than just wearing Nike and Adidas, then we started to get and you actually filled me in with the whole backstory of how SJ started in Australia when I was younger, which was madness. But other than, we don't have that local scene, you know, we don't. And it's awesome to see that we are starting to have it now.
And people, like we're starting to create our own brands from Australia. People, I think they're going to look back on our period of time as like a golden era, you know, in 20, 30 years back. They're going to look back at like, wow, things were crazy on all levels, on achievements and stuff like that, and great fighters coming out of Western Sydney. Look at Ty, and look at Tyson Pedro and Arlene. Look at all these other ones, as well as, not to glorify it in any way whatsoever, but the stuff that's happening. Sydney is such a beautiful, amazing place, but it's such a dangerous place at the moment too.
Yeah.
Not for your regular people, you know, and I consider myself regular now, but for all your gangsters and your heads, looking back on all the names that I used to know or fear or talk about from there, they're all dead. They're all dead, or the rest of them moved overseas, you know, because Sydney had this big period of self-cleansing or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
You know, where a lot of people are getting shot.
Yeah.
And we seem so distant from it because we don't always see it. But I've been living in the Southwest for the last couple of years, and you hear, I was playing Call of Duty with my mate the other day. I was in Mount Druitt, and he pop. He's like, oh, someone got shot out the front, 1 second. And I had one of them moments. I'm like, bro, where the fuck are we? Everyone's just like, Sydney soft. You don't live like us in America, but like, bro, people are getting shot regularly. Executed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you're so right.
I think we'll look back on this period and they'll make movies about it. They'll be like, man, fuck, shit was crazy.
Yeah, wow. I've, based on your situation, how it was growing up, going from like early, even to late teenager, to the position you're in today, it's like you got the origin stories of a lot of awesome people around you in your circle, you know?
Yeah.
And I've had that realization just from doing the podcast and talking to my close friends, because it's been my close friends who have helped me be consistent and put in these practice hours to get me to now where I'm willing to reach out and go and try and grow this into a business. But I'm talking to everyone, I'm like, fuck, this is the origin stories, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
these people are going to become successful, high-achieving, capable individuals, and I get to fucking be a part of that and come for the journey. Like, it's so awesome. So one thing I want to ask you is, in having your own business that a lot of people are wanting in my personal life to start and to aim towards, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned along the way?
It's so much easier than you think, but it's so much harder than you think. Everyone is a deterrent because whether they consciously or subconsciously don't want you to be in that good position, they're fearful, so they'll always try to stop you. Like, man, just take the steps because it's so simple. You know, there's a very low barrier of entry for most businesses. You know, until you're talking about businesses that require great investment, like your normal sort of businesses, a very low barrier of entry financially and what knowledge you need. Like, man, just start something. It's that simple. I've failed. Like, I think they said something the other day that successful business owners will fail 17 businesses before the one that's. I've failed with so many businesses. And am I failing in any now? Nah, alhamdulillah. Most of the ones I'm doing now are good. But I tried so many different things. I still do. I still like get an idea in the middle of the night and be like, oh, I'm going to order 500 of these from China. And I'm going to start a website and and I plan to, and some I do, some I don't. But my advice or what I've learned is, man, just start it. Like, for whatever it is, I've got 1,000 of them in here in my phone, whatever they are, and I've got them for all different reasons. I don't know if you can see them. Yeah. They're little checklists, and I've got them for a whole lot of different things, right? Yeah. And then you can make sub-genres, right? And what I'll do is I'll manifest an idea, and I like to do it, like it'll normally come to me at like 2 a.m. or something like that, and I'll write it down, and whenever it hits me, I'll just go through it all, and I'll write everything down, every idea I have, and then I'll write just the simplest business plan. Do this. Register with ASIC. Start a company. Once you get the company, open up a bank account. Set that up. Get my ABN. Get my ACN. Whatever it is, start marketing. Message this person, that. A list of... And then what I'll do is I'll list all of my assets in relation to that. And my assets could be people. It could be money. It could be a computer. Whatever it is, I want to start this company. Say I want to do a podcast. I'll start, well, I've got this camera. I've got this microphone already. I've got that. Plus, I know this bloke. This bloke owes me a favor. And I'll just put this list down into a proper checklist, and then if I really want to go to the next level, I'll put a date next to those certain things. If it's a business venture with multiple people, I'll put an initial next to them, to who's responsible for it. Get that list, and I'll just like obsess on it for a little bit, and just could be one day, it could be 1 week. It could just be a natural thing. Oh, I did this, tick it off. Or I could just be like, nah, today is my day between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. I'm doing this, and I'll just hyperfixate till I don't talk to anyone, my wife or nothing. She'll be telling me, yeah. And I'll go through and I'll just do all of them things. And before you know it, like, bang, it's done. And it's that simple. And then, you got a company. People are like, oh, you've got this. No, man, I just fucking went on ASICS on my phone and registered a company. Yeah. Up until very recently, Krude's been run off my phone. Yeah. Or I've downloaded all the apps. I've downloaded all the editing things. I've downloaded all the software. I bought the mock-ups. I message China. I run my Shopify. I can do my ad, my Google, my SEO rankings. Anything you can do. You've got this fucking machine next to you, and that's what I learned in jail. Is that like I watched my particular cellie run an empire. It wasn't a good empire. It was a drug empire. But I watched him run it off a phone this big. I'm like, watch this turn over millions with a phone this big in the cell. Like wouldn't eat, wouldn't do nothing. And I realized, bro, like this is the most important thing you could have right now. This camera there is the quality of any photographer I'd pay for. Yeah. And not only that, it maybe there's better ways to do it, but just getting a raw photo off your phone and uploading it sometimes gets the best footage. Half of my big massive reels are just off a video that I've just gone and thrown up. So you have everything that you could want here. You could just lock yourself away and start. Bro, give me credit, $200, or I think it's $600 to start a company now. I'll do anything sitting there tapping away with my phone. Yeah. You know, so. Yeah.
So that's been what you found to be the easy part of it, the accessibility to starting a business if you're willing to take that leap. But you also mentioned it's also the hardest as well. What's been some of the hard things that have come from doing it?
What did I say was the hardest exactly?
You just said it's been easy and it's been hard.
I said it's a lot easier than you think, and it's a lot harder than you think. Yeah. So it's a lot easier than you think in terms of starting the company. It's easy, speaking to contacts, clients, right. But it's a lot harder in terms of consistency, staying on it, making sure that you do the things that you have to do when you don't want them. And having your business, say you have your own business, people look at my vendor bros now, which is in all metrics a completely successful business. They're like, oh, vending, man, I want to get into it. What they didn't see and what I don't put on social media is at the time was coming off my crane shift at 5 in the Arvo, packing my Toyota Camry with cans until the springs were fucked and I couldn't go over speed hump, and going to these job sites and stacking them myself, dirty, tired, cold, raining. I fucked the machines up and I learnt all my machines that way. I did that for a couple of months before I hired people. So the requirements is that you're the buck stops at you. So if it's 7 o'clock at night and you got to go stock that vending machine, I had some in fucking Cronulla, and it's got to be done because there's nobody else. If you don't do it, it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's hard because you're like, fuck, it's 9 o'clock at night. Everybody else is coming back from work, going to the pub, kicking back, and you're out doing shit you don't want to do. That's the metric to success.
Yeah.
So it's hard because it's fucking grinding, and you quickly learn. I think you learn on salary and wages and that you just learn to pass the blame. Like, that's not me. That's a fucking carpenter should have done that. Gyprocker left that hole there. I'm clocked off. But then when you're in a business, there is like, you have to absorb every bit of responsibility. Anything good that happened is your fault, and anything bad that happened is your fault. So when something's not right, there is no, oh, this fucked up. It's just, okay, I'll wear that. I fucked it up. I'll figure out a way. I'll get back to you. I'll sort this out. Right. And if that means that so many times wiping a bill or losing money or whatever it is, then that's on you. Yeah. And that's the hard bit. Another really, really hard bit is, I already mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again, is staying consistent. Because relate anything back to a gym workout. You want to go now? Fucking hit some pre-workout. Let's go, brother. G'd up. First 20 minutes, we're talking, we're buzzed, rada. Then you hit the midsection. Oh, fuck me. You get a bit tired, lazy. Oh, we got 10 minutes left. Come on, brother. Let's go. Pump. Yeah. The middle section is the hardest bit of anything. And staying consistent through that middle section where the glitz and glamour and fun of starting a new business is worn off and you don't have money. Not only is the business not making money, but you're investing your other money into that business. So you're not living like you would have before. That extra money from whatever is going straight into that business, and then saying, no, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. Yeah.
And what is it in your life that makes you keep going in that moment? Why do you have that? How did you learn the skills in order to be like, you know what?
I feel like the appropriate answer to say is, my family, my kids, I just keep doing it. And to some aspect is true, but it's a very selfish need that internally, like I think I said it before, I think your depression, anxiety, and that is the direct correlation to the direct correlation to the difference between where you are and where you think you should be or where you deserve to be. And whether it's right or wrong, I've got an innate need inside of me that I feel like I should and can achieve greatness, and it's there for me to take it. And that's mixed with this unbridled feeling of I'm never going to be good enough. So I'm constantly doing things to prove to myself that I can do that. I took that pro fight. It was a hard fight. And I went in there and I dropped the guy every round, and I fucked up because I burned all my energy, but I knew what I was doing. I was trying to prove to myself that I still had it. Yeah. And I didn't. Once I dropped in the last time, I'm like, yeah, I still got it, but I gassed out. And I go through my life trying to do that. And it's like, yeah, don't get me wrong, there's probably many reasons why I keep going, but the main reason is a selfish need to want to be exactly where I think I deserve to be in my head. Deserve.
I'm glad you used the word deserve at the end there, because it's almost instilled, that feeling of deserving it, and I think it's knowing that you can get there based on other little things you've done along the way to be like, oh, I've done this because of that. I can see that investing the time and the effort from this business, it might not look like it's working, but it's, in your experience, has it worked before? So that's why you continue to do it in that regard. Is that why you, even though, like, say you got multiple businesses running, right?
Yeah.
One of them is not making money.
Yeah.
It's costing money from other business.
Yeah.
And now it's costing your time that you could be spending in other businesses or even your free time. Why continue to go down that business?
If I've crunched numbers and I'm happy with it and I know that it's a metric that just needs a bit of time or whatever, then I'll keep doing it. But then on the other end, you got to be self-aware enough to go, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
I've run that for, and I'm capping that there.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess there's no right or wrong answer. You'll just see along the way.
Yeah.
Because what is right or wrong, man? Like, look at the clothing company Stacks. They look like a relatively new company. They've been grinding for like 7 years, and they just had one of the biggest blow ups ever. You know, so it's like, where do you draw that line? Because, like I said in another thing, everyone's going to think it's delusion until you made it, and then they're like, "Oh, that's mad. Good on you."
Yeah, it's very true. I feel like that feeling of deserving the place in which you want to be at is instilled within us. But for me, I feel like I'm always trying to at least achieve the next level of accomplishment in multiple different facades that I'm engaged in. But I think that the fear of not is more pushing than wanting it in the first place. You know, my biggest fear, and I've worked it out, is that I get to the end of the road, hopefully, blessingly, it's in like 60 more years at least, and I realize I didn't do enough. You know, I could have been in a different position. You know,
What would the outcome be of that? Do you reckon that's heading towards? I think all of us have a need to be known, and nobody wants to be forgotten. Do you reckon that's all just wrapped up into that little thing of maybe you got to the end, and if you didn't do enough, people won't remember you?
I don't have fear people won't remember me, but I am my own biggest critic. You know, I'm trying my best as I'm going through my ages of self-progression to not worry about other people's opinions on me, because it's only me who can get me out of it. So it only needs to come from me to have the support. If I have extra support, it helps. And if I have people telling me it's the wrong idea, it might be a gift. You know, I might be able to take it into consideration, but I need to be accountable for my own opinion of myself. And the fear of looking back and knowing that, man, I didn't do this thing I wanted to do along the way. I didn't try the next level of trade or the next, engineering. It could be I didn't open this business on the side. I didn't get black belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, there's a lot of things that I think to myself, like, yes, I want it, but not having it in the end is worse than wanting it. You know what I mean? It's that fear of not accomplishing that is more for me to keep going than wanting it in the first place.
Yeah.
It might come back to that feeling like I deserve it, because I could get to the end and realize, like, man, I deserved it.
What do you think you want out of the feeling of accomplishment? That internal feeling, or I guess people around you to look at you and go, he was right, he did make it?
Obviously, to have people give me praise for my accomplishments is a feeling that I am trying to chase.
Yeah.
But I think it would have to come from more of a feeling as if I have got enough self-worth now. You know what I mean? Like, I think it would be self-worth because I know it's possible. So even if everyone else thinks something's...
The complete self-worth is possible?
Yeah. Not complete self-worth. Accomplishments in any field are possible.
Yeah,
even if everyone else thinks they're impossible.
Yeah.
I don't need to prove them wrong. If I believe it's possible and then I don't achieve it, then I failed. Does that make
100%.
sense? Yeah, I think so. But in terms of the businesses you're doing now, is Krude your number one business? If you have multiple things that you're working on at the same time, what do you give the most attention to, or is it completely spread out?
What, when you say number one, under what metric?
Number one is in that you're putting the most effort into?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe because it's creative effort.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a feeling of expression as well.
It doesn't make the most money. I've got other companies that make way more than Krude, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, nice. So what's the next? Because to be honest, as far as I can see, that's the thing that I know the most about, because it's the one I see on social media. So what's
I said, everything is fake.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Like Krude does well. Krude sells, and Krude's out there. Krude's active. But if you were to look at my life, it'd be like, oh yeah, he's making all his money off Krude. No, I make money off other companies.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, cool. So what's the next steps then? If it's not just in Krude, what's the next steps you'd like to take in business in general? Like, I know it's a broad term now that there's more businesses than I'm aware of, but is there anything that you're looking forward to for at least this year?
I'm going through a process of seeking myself, because we're going through such a strange period, coming off the back of COVID and coming into the situation we're in now. Almost the complete middle class has been destroyed in Australia or removed. So I'm looking at now, realistically, I have a few. At the start, I was like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. And now that some businesses have been successful, I'm really more precious of my time. So it's like, what could I do now? Say hypothetically you get a business now in Australia and you can make a ×3 ROI on everything you put in, which is pretty good. That's not even pretty good. That's great. That's not enough to get rich in Australia.
Yeah.
That's barely enough for that company to wash its own face, to pay its own bills, and to support one business owner, maybe, with rent and bills and all that. That's not enough to make big... And that's a good markup. Like, there's not many other things that you're going to make at more than 3x ROI.
Yeah.
So now I'm looking into just different things of how I can make decent money, and not only that, like how can I make decent money without putting time and effort into it, so I can put time and effort into the things that I like. You know, it would essentially, if I'm looking into anything, unless it's like a ×3 ROI without a great burden to me, then I wouldn't even get involved whatsoever.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Do you think that this is going to be a hard question to ask, let alone answer, but what's the most insightful part of owning businesses? Would it be to have more freedom with time or have more money to spend in your free time?
The most insightful part?
Not insightful. I shouldn't use the word insightful to start the question, but what's the most...
Enjoyable?
Enjoyable, yeah.
Is to
have the free time or have the money to spend when you finally have the free time?
Oh, fuck, it's probably both. I think at the moment now, it's because I've had my second son. It's been able to be around, you know, give my wife a little bit of time in the morning, maybe take one son or maybe change a few nappies here and there, and spending time with my family has been amazing, you know.
Yeah.
Financially, I could be doing more and make it more out chasing this or that, but for a period of time where I can pay the bills and I can still wake up and play with my kids in the morning, that's been great.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And I think I'll look back on this period of time and be like, wow, you had it all. Ironically, the only other time in my life where I knew I had it all was when I met you.
Okay.
Right? So I was working at that gym, so I was teaching, doing one thing I shouldn't have been every day. I sold a bit of pot to this one guy. I was trying to get out of everything, but I sold pot to this one guy every day. I made $200 in my pocket. In the morning, I'd drop it off. I'd go to the gym. I'd do my sessions in the morning. I'd go do the CrossFit in the morning. Straight after that, I'd hop in. Remember that ute I had I sold to you?
Yeah, of course.
I'd hop in that bad boy,
Yeah.
put my surfboard in the back, go straight out, do a bit of surfing at the beach because I taught myself how to surf out of jail. Come back from that. Then I'll teach the class, I'll do a weights class, and then maybe I'll do a yoga class in between there somewhere, eat, or go to Frango's across the road from the gym, get a massage next door, 8, 9 o'clock at night, get my massage, go home. And bro, life was good. Every day I was wrestling, training, boxing, kickboxing, getting paid, surfing.
Yeah.
That was like, I've thought about that period of time in jail. I'm like, man, you had it all. And I think maybe it's something to do with I just released everything and I knew I was going away anyway, and I just cut out a little existence of happiness.
Yeah.
And I think you will look back on those times, like I'm in a period now where it's like I don't have everything I've want, but I've got more than anything I ever wanted for, and I can maintain a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. I say it on the podcast a lot. I feel like life will give you whatever you want.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't even know what you want, and it's going to give it to you anyway.
Yeah.
You know, that's a beautiful part of life.
Yeah.
It obviously comes from staying consistent and putting your mind to things, but you don't know what you want most of the time until you have it.
Yeah.
You know, it's awesome. It's sick. So what's this chapter in being a father? I'm very interested because it's hopefully going to be my next chapter that I go through in my life. I've been looking forward to it for a very long time. So what has been, for someone who is getting ready into being a father, what's something that you could say is not unexpected, but just some information that might be useful?
I don't know. It's always different. I don't know. For a father, I think maybe some people think differently, but I think having a baby is not much for us. You're worried about your partner and this, that, and then this little blob comes out and it does nothing for like 3-4 months.
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't much interest for me. But then slowly, when I saw little signs of life and smiles, and now my oldest son, he runs around, we have the time of our life.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a slow process. But a lot of good feelings along the way.
Mm-hmm. That's a very useful piece of information then, because I know that a lot of people probably expect a life-changing, quick, instant oh, everything's like so different now. Like, why am I feeling like things might not be? But if it slowly
Nothing
leads
changes
up,
for me. But then some people are like, oh, the moment I saw the baby, my whole life changed. I don't know if they mean that or if that's something they feel like they need to say. But it's just normal for a bit, and then the feelings start to come. For me, anyway.
That's definitely good information to put out there because I've never heard that before, and it's good to know that either or two are still situations that can lead to a point in which, oh, it's so good.
Yeah,
yeah, that's awesome. That's sick.
I think more or less just pay attention to your partner because they go through it a lot worse than us.
Yeah.
You know, prenatal depression and all sorts of things, all sorts of stuff play on their head. You know, once they accept you as the person that's going to raise their child, everything's like, wow, is this guy good? Did I do the right thing? Is he going to be a good father? They surely know that already.
Yeah.
But and I'm sure because having a baby is a similar thing to like death. I guess it is because it's life. There's only a few certain things in life that are so certain you can't come back from. You know, and every now and then they happen, and you're sitting there in a different position. You're either in the hospital, you're in jail, you're at the cemetery or something, and you're like, wow. We took this path and that path. Both paths potentially exist at the same time, but it's like, man, we took this path and that's it. So many things you can come back from. You lose your job, you can go beg for it back or whatever it be, but there's a few certain things in life that are just final and they create a fork, and now you're traveling down one of them paths. And I think for women, having a baby really highlights that. It's like, yeah, I'm heading down this path. This is more or less, for better or for worse, you know, the father of my child.
Yeah. And in that sense, is that why you're saying that be there a lot for your partner as a girlfriend or a wife or fiance, whatever it may be, because they are having that moment of like, and as a guy, I guess it makes sense that you don't have that realization because your life, you're not the one who's going to be nurturing and raising and breastfeeding
the baby,
all that stuff. Like, I guess our lives kind of would stay the same, you know, like it's very
it does. You're right. But then, it does change.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. So you have your second son now.
Yeah.
Which, congratulations, that's awesome.
Thanks.
Did you always grow up wanting to have two boys, or is it something that you've just kind of?
No, I wanted a girl. I still want a girl.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think God gives you what you're meant to have.
Mm-hmm.
I still want a girl, and hopefully my wife's listening. We'll try again later.
Yeah.
But I love that I got two boys now because I've always known the right recipes to give to boys.
Yeah, yeah. It's relatable. You know, you understand the mind of a girl. I'd love to have a girl myself, trust me, but there is also that moment where it's like, shit, a boy, it's like, yo, I've been through it. I know what I'm doing. With a girl, it's a full new journey, a new experience that obviously you need to have a man and a woman to help raise any child in their lives, but you have to have full faith in a girl. It's like, this is how, I swear to God, I have no fucking idea how girls are thinking or feeling all the time. As soon as I feel like I have it figured out, I get a slap that's like, you have no idea.
Yeah.
It's always like that. So having a daughter would be a phenomenal experience.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think so, yeah.
I think it'll complete a part of me that's not there.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put that. I ask this question when people talk about kids in the future as well, and people say, how many kids do you want to have? Some people say, oh, I want to have two, I want to have three, I want to have 2 boys, a girl, 2 girls, a boy. Is a certain number of kids more important in your personal life, or you definitely want to have a girl? As in, like, are you willing
the quality
to
of life is so important too. I wouldn't want to have a kid and not both be prepared, because I got 2, which is way harder than 1. But then everyone's like, man, 3 is another level. They say once you have 3, you can have as many as you want.
Yeah, okay.
So I wouldn't want the quality. Like, man, when we had just my son, we thought it was hard. And both my wife and I got to a point where we're like, oh, we got this figured out now. He can stay here. She can do that. We're both training again. We're eating good. Life is good. And then this other one hit and just boom, everything's up in the air. You're figuring out new plans. You're struggling. Whatever system you had, if that one is now affected by this one. It's a hard process.
Yeah, so it's just a forever changing, but that's evolution, isn't it? That's evolution.
I wouldn't pick anything. I just, at this time in my life, I'd want to have the most comfortable life that we can have during the process.
I like that because I've been saying for a very long time, and all my mates listening to the podcast know that I want to have 6 boys. Yeah, and I've always said it, and I want to have as many girls as it takes, but I'm having 6 boys.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm not saying that I'm ignoring the fact, but it's like the reality is like I don't even know what it's like having two. You know, I don't
Yeah.
even know what it's like having three. Like, I don't know if I've had 3 girls, and then it's like, man, 6 boys still at the end of it.
If you have 3 girls, I don't think you're going to keep going for 6 boys.
It's wild. Like, I understand that things might change along the way. It is what I want now.
Yeah.
But it's nice to know that.
Why do you want 6 boys?
I do get asked that a lot, and I think the truth is, like, I want to be able to experience so much of what life has. Like, I'm a junkie for experience. It's
Yeah.
just, I love, it's the whole reason I'm here, to taste every flavor, smell every smell, and do every activity.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it goes as deep as feel every emotion. Like, I'm happy to go through the ringer. Like, this is life. So with having 6 boys, like, I can see, and I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly now, because I went deep one day into like 6 different ways you can live your life, and I can see relations as to how each one can be, and I can kind of categorize ways I could be. And if I have 6 boys, I feel like I'd be a father of all 6 different possibilities. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to explain why, but 6 is just, I feel like it's a good number to be like, oh, I know what it all feels like now. You know, I've gone through every realm of existence, and yeah, hopefully blessings only come my way, and I don't have to experience any of the negative things that come my way personally, and especially with children in the future. But 6 boys is an army. 6 boys is like,
That's what I was heading towards.
yeah,
Because there's a need in all of us, whether we say it or not, to have an army. Not have an army, but to have, 6 capable men that would follow you to the end of the earth.
yeah.
So is it like a need for all these experiences, or subconsciously there's some need to be in control of?
Well, that's one of the experiences, you know. That's like, I'm trying not to limit my capacity on, like, I want to have it just so I can have an army of men that I've raised and created to go
Saying
conquer.
that we're all green over there too.
You know, yeah, I know, true. Yeah, yeah. Obviously, I want an army. I want a capable generation that came from my raisement.
Yeah.
That
For what purpose?
for the feeling of pride, you know, for the feeling of looking back and being proud of what I've accomplished, and knowing that I've made mistakes along the way, but if I can continue to try and put in the effort, I believe that all my children will be able to be happy long term, you know, on a scale of longevity. I'm going too deep onto fucking moments and shit like that now, but 6 boys, like, fuck, it'd be so hectic. I could have a fridgie, I could have a carpenter, I could have a doctor, I could have a garbage man. Like, go down your paths and just, like, come back and let's discuss the experiences you've had, and let's progress together, you know. I'd love it. But girls, if I have 6 girls, like, there's going to be 12 of them. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's crazy. Now, I wanted to go back to faith. I did hear you mention in Nick's podcast your journey of, you know, finding Islam and your chapter in doing so. I know back when I met you for the first time, you were telling me it was almost like a recent chapter that you hadn't always been a part of. So how has faith played a part in your life through, you know, growing up to where you are now?
Growing up, I was raised Catholic. With not a lot of strong amount of faith, and then on my dad's side, they're like 7-day evangelists, so they do all crazy stuff where they expel demons and whatnot. I think I had a rejection of faith young because it didn't make sense. There were so many inconsistencies, and didn't feel like it was for me, and it was just such a peaceful religion. I'm like,
Oh, so it was the religious aspect of the faith that made you feel like you didn't understand what they were talking about?
yeah. Not to mention, the doctrines have been edited. The Nicaea Accords. There was just a lot of inconsistencies. And then later on I found Islam, and it just had such a strong meaning and such a simple meaning that just even like when they say, oh, you converted to Islam, no, I reverted to Islam. Because Islam means peace. To be a Muslim is subservient to the laws of God. So any being or atom that is subservient to the laws of God is a Muslim. And if you were to leave that, you converted. And when you decide you want to be a Muslim again, i.e. to be subservient to the laws of God, you're reverting back to Islam. So all this stuff that people think and that, Islam means peace. So for me, how important has it been in my life? Now it's so important because it's, I guess, the backbone for everything. It's the backbone for the way I raise my children, the way I treat my wife, the way I make money. everything. It's given me a structure and order. And I think, and a lot of times I've been criticized because it's like I've been constantly craving structure and order my whole life. Maybe I never had a father around. So I joined the gang, which had structure. And then I go to prison, which had order and structure and authority. And then I get or finish all that and I, become a strong Muslim with this structure. And I think we need it because you can't even now imagine something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You'd only use things that do exist. And we like playing video games because they have a structure.
Yeah.
Like if you had a video game with no structure, you'd get bored of it because you could go off doing anything. We need rules and whether we need them or not, we need rules and objectives and reasons and stuff like that. And I think that comes through faith.
Jordan Peterson says he uses, and it's one of the first chapters in his book, 12 Rules for Life, chaos and order.
Yeah.
You have to have both. You have to have order is so important, but you still have to have chaos along the same time. And that's how I see an overall picture of religion in general, most religions, but definitely having faith because we've been given the gift of free will, which is our chaos, and then we have the order in which it's our, whether it be commandments or whether it be a book of rules or whatever you want to call it, but it's almost perfect that we have got our list of things that we know we should be doing and they have been written down for us to follow. But the fact that we can go out and make mistakes along the way is perfect. I couldn't think of a better way for life to exist, I think that a God that is willing to give everyone the freedom to decide that no matter what I'm going to be here to follow the rules, but you can choose to go ruin it all yourself is an act that as a parent, you probably wouldn't be able to come to terms with, like you're always going to do your best to try and help them. And you're probably going to you obviously are putting in boundaries and stuff in the middle now, but for a fact of, and I can't see any other reason for anyone to have faith there is a God other than the fact that we're all brought up in, no matter what kind of culture or tradition or upbringing, to have gratitude for your life. We all are thankful to be alive. To be thankful means it's a gift. To be a gift, it has to have come from something, you know. It's almost built in our DNA in so many levels to know there's a bigger version of existence.
Yeah, but I would say one of the biggest things about finding your faith is then identifying all the ways which you were renouncing your faith and you didn't know. And I think that, like, it's so, like you were saying, to have free will and choose the right thing and choose the wrong thing. But I think also one of the important things is knowing when you're doing the wrong thing. And in the society that we're in, we're being tricked from every avenue to sin without knowing we're being sin. And that's the greatest trick, is the devil said he wanted to make us all sin. And his biggest trick would be convincing the world that he didn't exist, and however you want to look at it, you're manifesting devils in the music you listen to. You're worshipping false idols, without getting into too many controversial stuff. You're celebrating and appreciating homosexuality and sodomy. All the things which in all of our religious texts, that if they did half of the stuff that we did, they'd be smited.
Yeah.
The city of Saddam, the city of Gomorrah, the city of Lut, all of them destroyed for doing half of the things we're doing. And we're in such a state where unless you're fully aware and conscious of it, the new generation, you wouldn't know all the bad things. You wouldn't know that you're worshipping Satan in the music. You wouldn't know that the frequencies have been intertwined with the demonic frequencies or the 808 drum. You wouldn't know that you're looking at satanic symbols, esoteric symbols. You wouldn't know that until you add it all up. And it's so interesting now that we can look at it and see it and go, oh, yep, they're doing this, they're devil worshippers. But all these things that we thought were conspiracy theories, I used to get yelled at from my mum for believing these conspiracy theories that are all real now.
Yeah.
Mum, they're changing the weather. Oh, shut up, you're silly. It's conspiracy. Mum, they're doing their own terrorist attacks. Oh, don't say that.
Yeah.
And now it's all coming out.
Yeah.
So there's so much evil in this world, and we're being tricked into being a part of it. So I think one of the greatest liberations of being truly religious is identifying all the little things. Like, I do so many wrong things, like even listen to music. I try to listen to as much as possible. But even that, what are the words that you're ingesting in? What are they saying,
Yeah. And I find that for all the texts that say these are the things that you need to avoid, I feel like growing up, we have this belief system that it's like, well, I'm the one that's in experiencing my own life. We might be experiencing this consciously or subconsciously, but if I'm living my life, I want to be able to live my life how I want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not worried about it.
But who put that into our brains? Who said that was that you could live? We know you can't live however you want because you have to respect people around you.
Mm-hmm.
For what reason did we become so self-entitled that we should be able to do whatever we want at any cost and live in such a free world where there's no consequences for our actions?
I think we might have it naturally in us to a certain level, which is why, you know, it does take so many times to try and tell younger generations to get through your information. Even as toddlers and kids, you find that they're always pushing the envelope. They're always trying to see how much they can get away with, not necessarily from a form of rebelliousness, but from a form of curiosity, you know, to see what happens. So going through your life and realizing at one point, okay, I'm the one experiencing this. When you have got a list of rules in front of you, like from a religion or schooling or whatever it is, it's an easy example for me because I went to a religious school for a part of it, that you kind of think to yourself, like, I'm not too concerned about living my life how it's meant to be looked at from someone else's perspective, whether it be my parents, my teachers, or even this idea of God that you're telling me about. But in reality, by ignoring those things, you're only ruining your own life. You're not actually affecting God, which you may be. But I'm saying it like those things are there for you for your own benefits. Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of people don't understand about religion. It's not there to keep God happy. It's not there to keep everyone around you happy. It's there for you. He doesn't need us, we need him. Exactly. It's there for you to keep you happy.
I think there's a natural need for rebellion, or a natural feeling of rebellion, regardless of what it is at a young age. And then later on, I think you'll find that you're rebelling against the wrong thing.
And it's like you've been rebelling against yourself. You get to a certain point and you realize, like, I'm not rebelling against the rules. I'm rebelling against myself. I feel like that gut feeling when we all know we're doing the wrong thing is an encounter. That is a experience with God. That could
be you in the future.
Yeah.
Talking back to yourself.
Exactly right. And not only that, but it could be the fact of, like, if God is God is within all of us, then that is an experience that we're choosing to go off the path. That is that metaphorical saying that everyone says, like, God's tried to show you the right way and you've chosen to not listen. Like, and that's all natural feelings that we're experiencing. These are just ways that people have written it down for thousands of years that make more sense. You know, I think faith is. I had one mate who reached out to me. He said to me yesterday that I started praying again. You know, and I asked him why. What's the main purpose of this? And he says, well, God is going to constantly give me lessons and experiences along the way that I have to either ignore or listen to, and he's going to guide me. And I wanted to say, for starters, thank you for everything. But second of all, like, I need to know if I'm going down the right path. And I said, I think the most important takeaway from this is that and he's never been religious. He's never thought of it. And I said, just being open-minded to the idea of it in the first place is, like, from then on now, it's your journey. Like, I'm not too concerned of you finding a traditional religion or set of rules to live your life by, but just opening up to the idea of it being possible and then at least giving it a go is so beneficial, especially in my life. I can only say this from experience. You know, it's been the most beneficial guidance system to any form of endeavor that I'm facing at all times.
How do you tie your beliefs with some of the esoteric beliefs? Like, you've got the pyramid on your neck.
Yeah.
You study much about the Egyptian or ancient Temet and stuff like that?
To be honest, this year I've had a massive chapter of going through Egypt because I started this year doing a Temet.
How do you correlate that with you're a Christian?
To define myself, I have always known, I've never been religious growing up. No one in my family has ever spoken about God in any way to me. The closest thing I've gotten is my nan, who's a hippie, right? Yeah. I got put into a private school and I was about 14 or something maybe for 2 years because I was going down the wrong path. My parents said, fuck, what can we do? Put him in a Christian school. Yeah. And then through creating friends there, they invited me to church and I thought to myself, like, let's give it a go. Let's just start praying and saying thanks and all these things. And I defined myself as a Christian from then. Yeah. I eventually found flaws in the system and realized, like, man, I don't fit in with this set of rules. Yeah. The more I look into other religions, I've thought to myself, it's not that I'm not finding my relation to all these different religions, I'm seeing the commonality with all religions. I feel like I'm a part of all of them, let alone just one now.
Yeah.
So I can't label myself as a form of a believer. I just am a believer. And any piece of information I get, it's very easy for me to relate it back to my fundamental belief system, in which there is an all-knowing, all-powerful being who is guiding us whether we choose to listen or ignore it. And we are getting constant reminders for our own experiences, whether it be gut feelings or feelings of sadness or unexpected things to occur in your life. But I feel like every religion is trying to get to that end goal, which is saying thanks, living your life accordingly. And there is only one God. That is my belief. And everyone's just, I wouldn't say confused.
Do you believe there's one God, or you believe in one God?
I believe there is only one God. Yeah. How would you define the differences?
Well, there was a period in time in religion, say when Moses was around, where people accepted monotheism but accepted the other gods. And so that would still be blasphemous.
As in like the Roman and the Nordic and the Greek?
So they accepted the pagan gods.
Yeah.
But they said, we only follow our one God.
Yeah.
So that is believing in one God but accepting of others. But then the other belief of pure monotheism is there is only one God. La ilaha illallah. You know, so even in that, there's been a discrepancy in time where it's like, well, no, we only believe in one God. He's the best out of all the gods.
Yeah.
And so that was just a process along to monotheism.
If I was to say how I feel about that, it would be, I have no idea, and I don't necessarily believe that there's ever been any gods, as in the god of thunder who once walked this earth as in Thor, nor has there been the god of mischief who walked this earth as in Loki. But
if we follow our teachings further enough back, and I've got to be careful what I say, I'm not saying I believe in this, but just in historical information, if we follow our teachings back of the God of Abraham, Yahweh, follow him back to Mesopotamia and Babylonia, the God that they spoke of back then, Yahweh, was very similar to Zeus. He led the battle, he went to war, he had a big dick, he had multiple women, he had multiple children. And slowly, I'm not saying I agree with this, but slowly somewhere along that process from Babylonia and Mesopotamia, but by the time we enter into the current age, slowly that God turns into a God that you can't see, hear, or touch, or feel.
Yeah.
But before that, the old stories of Yahweh were very similar to Zeus. There's been such a transfer of information. For example, I mentioned the esoteric thing in there because even in Egypt, well, you've got Krishna as well in the Hindus, but I think I'm right with that one. But even in Egypt, you've got Horus, which is born of a virgin, had 12 disciples, resurrected, the same story of Jesus. And in the Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, you've got the flood of Noah or whatever, whether that is the Younger Dryas flood or a previous one. So it's just so many discrepancies or different journeys that you could get. And I don't have an answer for all of them. It's just interesting. I like looking at that information.
I look at it as well as information. You know, people say mythology is just tales, but really they were stories based on the times at the time.
How they could accurately describe it.
Yeah, and now they've obviously been translated, like, you know, especially through Christianity religion, that it's a book of text that has been adopted and transcribed, and bits have been taken out, and we don't have the chapter of Jesus in his early adulthood and late teenagehood that's been removed, and they believe that he went and studied Buddhism, and then Buddha at the end of the day, which Jesus came and preached the lessons he learn't from Buddhism. Buddha was just a Hindu who learnt the lessons of Hindu.
Well, I think I'm right in this, but Krishna has the same things as Jesus.
Okay, yeah.
I think I've got to double check that, but he was born of a virgin, 12 disciples, travelled around, taught knowledge, meditated, rada.
Yeah, so I can see the commonalities between religions, and I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I'm trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together along the way.
Yeah.
And in terms of like how we used to have this belief system that, you know, was adopted when they said to the pagans, like, okay, we'll combine our religions, you know, we'll give you the day of holiday, which is Christmas. Yeah, and things like that. And then you even have like the Catholic priest who wears the fish hat, which was a symbol that, you know, they worship the god, all these different relations. I still think that at those times, those people were right to put the praise in the thunder and rain and stuff to God, and still put the still believe that Poseidon ruled the seas across other religions. but there is still one God above all. All those different pathways people are choosing to praise and follow is still, in my opinion, leading to the end result. And I don't necessarily know if anyone's wrong by choosing to go down their path to get to it. Like, because I can see there is still the idea of God being at the end of it, and people are still having their encounters, you know, people are still praying for rain and doing rain dances and getting rain, you know.
Yeah, but sometimes the devil can do miracles too.
Yeah.
I would agree and disagree with what you're saying, is that like you can see the journey in which they got to where they are, but then I would say that there's so many people in today and in the previous times that have nefarious agendas and want you to accidentally worship the devil.
Yeah, I believe so too.
And I think it's so easy to accidentally do that. I mean, again, I'll be very careful what I say, is that hypothetically, if all that is true about Easter and about Christmas and worship on them days and them particular days, then whoever was in control at the time when they decided that, Constantine, but maybe decided to merge all of those together, somebody had the nefarious reason, the nefarious need to want people to pray to their God on a day that they were worshipping another God.
Yeah. But it could be looked at like, I think, everything with that good and bad intention. And I feel like everyone is responsible for their own path that they're going to follow, which is, you know, it's karma at the end of the day. You walk the road you're going to get to. So by the merging of the religions, it could have been an evil intention that someone has done unintentionally because they were just trying to focus on the peace of, you know, settling the lands and not fighting over crops. And this is how we can start to divert and stop battle. And it might have been from a place of selfish need because they knew they were going to come take their land anyway.
Or they just wanted control.
Or they just wanted control. But at the same time, they did stop suffering in the process, and they did stop wars for a moment in time by doing things. And I think that
Depends what you think suffering is.
yeah, okay, I shouldn't use the word suffering, but I should look at it. I should say it as in the yin yang. Yeah. Within every evil act, it can come from within that person a place of, you know, they feel like they're doing the right thing. Yeah. And I feel like that's what we're all balancing. We're all trying to find that Taoism in this exact center. And for everyone, and I've said this before on the podcast, for everyone who loses $50, you know, it's a bad thing. But for that person who picked it up, it was a good thing. Like every action has an equal and opposite reaction in anything. And it's that merging and letting go of differences that is what creates peace between everyone together. You know, everyone's trying to do it individually, but and I'm not trying to say anyone should give up their belief system. They should stick to what they truly believe. But I kind of have a theory that if everyone stuck to what they truly believe at all times and didn't go away from that initial feeling that is a feeling that you share with God, then maybe we would find peace. Maybe it's not trying to get other people to join your side of belief. Maybe it's if you stick to your true version of belief, you will be peaceful, which will create peaceful, you know, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Not sure if I illustrated that the way I wanted to, but I know how it feels on the inside. Anyway.
No, I understand what you're saying.
I don't know, this whole journey, especially going through this Egypt research that I went through in the beginning half of the year, I'm seeing so many relations between even the early days of what they believed in ancient Egypt to being, it's exactly the same thing as...
Well, there is no ancient Egypt.
Well, we have, yeah, you're right. We have an ancient Egypt, which is just the Egypt in the past, but where did Egypt start? Yeah. Kemen.
They would be the oldest periods of time where they probably built the temples. And what we know of as ancient Egyptians were the people that moved in and graffitied the walls. So at the time they rocked up there, everything was already built. Maybe a few other things, but the main pyramids are already built. And at that time, they didn't have the technology to keep building them. But what they did do is they graffitied the walls at the time with inscription. So that when we looked at it later, we're like, oh, these are the people that built the temples. But some of the hieroglyphs and some of the stuff written on them are far older than the original buildings.
Yeah, okay.
I never say potentially that the Sphinx has water erosion on it, which predates it to the Younger Dryas Ice Age.
Yeah.
And the flood before that, which would mean that civilizations were at their peak 30,000 years ago when we were meant to be in the Stone Age.
Yeah. Have you ever seen this Netflix documentary by Graham Hancock? It's called Ancient Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Fuck, that was... I loved that.
Yeah.
And I've been following Graham Hancock for a long time, especially through Joe Rogan and things like that.
Yeah.
But it was a great way to summarize. It was another way for me to look at the fact that we're still telling the same stories we've been telling 100 times. You know, it is Chinese whispers. So
what's his name is doing a really. Who's the black guy who's doing it at the moment? The Forbidden Knowledge, his name is?
the forbidden
I'll
knowledge.
tell you right now.
I'm not even sure.
Billy Carson.
Okay,
He's
I'll look
doing
into
a
him.
thing called, and he's got a book out now called The Epic of Humanity. And so it goes through all of them things. Gilgamesh, the ancient Egyptians, the Mesopotamia, every culture and all the stuff that they've done and said and built, but puts them into one timeline that's more accurate than the one we have.
Yeah.
Because at the moment now, potentially, our historical timeline was affected by religious scholars who said we're only 5,000 years old, and that's it.
Yeah.
We were made then and there. And that's all slowly being shattered. And so for so long, our actual history had been hidden.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
even to the smallest extent of, like, say, growing up. I remember growing up copping so much, and this is how they lie. I remember growing up copping so much racism. People would argue, oh, you know, white people, they may have enslaved the Africans, but they liberated them. They gave them freedom and technology.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and you're like, and that's how they rationalize it. Some people.
Okay,
Like,
yeah,
we civilize these natives.
Yeah.
But the irony of it is that the Moorish Empire was Africans primarily with Islamic backing. They civilized the world that we know. They conquered Europe and held Europe for 800 years. They taught Europeans how to be clean. They were black people. They taught them how to pray. They taught them neurology. They taught them science. They taught them algebra, astronomy. You know, that all come from the Moorish Empire, which was a North African tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And they would reside now in Morocco.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
So almost all the history that we've learnt has been flipped. And I could get into it even further, but I'll have to be careful with what I say, that everyone they said was bad wasn't really bad.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
They probably weren't these bad people that were created and made bad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
However further you want to follow.
I know
Let's
exactly.
use him for an example with not saying anything. His initial 2 laws that started this avalanche was no more homosexuality in the media and no more tax.
Yeah.
That was his first 2 rules, which caused an uprising.
Yeah.
I was too nuanced to say anything because, a lot of bad things happen.
Yeah.
But all them...
Of course. It doesn't take away the tragedy, obviously, but it gives a good insight to the beginning.
All them speeches that we thought were hate speeches, vaguely and naked, you go back and you watch them, and he's like, we need to stop these people from coming in and taking all of our money, taking all of our taxes. They're destroying our... Which is just what every other nation would have said at the time.
Yeah.
You know, and then all the stuff that happened, that's above my pay grade. But what I'm saying is that it is so easy for these guys to create our enemies.
Yeah.
And we just wholeheartedly believe that they're bad.
And then it does come back to what I was trying to say about the yin yang for people to live their life in the best possible way they can within their community. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying Hitler was right. He wasn't on the right side of yin yang.
Yeah.
But you can understand it, and at least I can understand it from a point in which maybe at a certain point he thought he was doing the right thing. I believe that past the point he decided to make the wrong choices.
Well, at some point in time, he was like, fuck it, burn them all, which is really bad. But where he was at the point where it was more nuanced than we could think about, and then what these world players did or said to create the next, the next chain of events.
Yeah. So,
and then even on top of that, right? Like I said, it's all flipped. That is the worst massacre historically recorded, right?
Yeah.
What about King Leopold? He killed so many more Africans. Nobody talks about King Leopold. I don't know.
I don't even know the name. I'm not even sure.
Research King Leopold. He did the biggest. So, do you know Belgian chocolates?
Yeah.
Have you seen them? Their little hands.
Yeah.
That comes from him because when he'd go out, you'd get paid per black hand that you brought.
I have
back.
heard the story. Yeah.
Yeah. So that little black hand used to signify a real. Here's a hand. Give me my money for it.
Wow.
Or whatever. So when you research King Leopold, he did way more atrocities than Hitler ever did, but he's glorified.
Yeah.
It's hidden.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And we are so manipulated across all aspects of our existence, Like from the moment we start learning about anything in school, and it unfortunately is why a lot of people steer away from religion because they eventually get to a point where they realize they've been lied to this whole time, not just by teachers or parents, you know, like, but they realize like, fuck, everything I've been fed is bullshit.
Yeah.
Take
that was
on,
one of the reasons I came to Islam, because I realized it'd been vilified for so long. Like, everyone's saying it's the baddest religion. So if the devil exists, we know he does, his job would be to destroy the true religion. So when I seen that, and then thinking back to growing up, it's like, probably, I don't know, if I had to assume these guys are really smart in the 40s or 50s, they looked at just births and deaths of people, and they're like, man, if we just leave Islam alone, they're going to overtake the world.
Oh, yeah.
Just on numbers.
Yeah.
Just on births and deaths. If we do nothing to Islam, everyone will be Muslim.
Yeah.
Just going on in a matter of time. And say if that was an understanding that you'd come to, and you had a nation to run, not saying it's right or wrong, definitely saying it's wrong actually, but it would be your
objective to
destroy this imminent thing that's coming at you.
Yeah.
So you would wage wars, you would say certain things, you would take their oil, you would vilify their leaders, you would do all them things that they've done, just knowing that they were going to take over.
Yeah. I've heard this other theory as well, and I'm not trying to take away, and I'm not even trying to put any light that some religions are better than others, because I am not one who identifies with any. But even the idea of Jesus, I'm watching this TikTok theory at the moment, and Christianity, where some people are going down this rabbit hole where they think that Loki has manipulated Christianity to be, you know, and again, like, it's like, maybe Loki is just another word to use to describe the devil. You know what I mean? Maybe all these religions, the bad guy is always the same bad guy. You know, the good guy is always the same good guy. It's crazy. I don't know. It's too deep, bro. It's not that it's too deep for me to bother to go down and explore, because I'm always going to go down and explore. It's honestly too deep for this episode, but
yeah. The other thing too is, because I could get into Egyptian stuff, I could get into conspiracy. I could go all day for it.
Yeah.
And I have, and I delve through it all. But then you get to a point, it's like, what is practical in this real world? What information can I take from that will actually benefit me in this real world? And I would say none of it, other than the fact to understand and know that there are nefarious people out there that want you to actively and submissively consume their bad material, and that it's in your best interest to see no evil. You know, and that's the only thing you can take out of other than just having a normal distrust for the government, which you should. You know, other than that, there's not much more of that stuff that's going to help you in your day-to-day life, make money or be a good father or succeed.
Yeah, it is true. It is true. That's why it's up to us to decipher the information we've been given and apply it practically on a little level. But by living our lives on a little level, we are now able, we're able to give advice and have people seek advice, and then spread the message and see what you've learned and warn others like you're doing about the negative things that they have in the world. And yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow, to understand that the fact that everything we've been given is to create us to be consumers and machines, a part of this bigger picture. Yeah, it is a tough pill to swallow, but I'm just trying to accept the fact that I am a part of it. Yeah. So let's navigate the fact that I'm a part of it as best to my capability as possible, you know, which I think has helped guide me through that whole experience of like, fuck, what do I do now? You know what I mean?
And look, and that it all adds to, and breaking away from your pre-created molds, you know, is such a hard, and it takes, like we were talking before about that level of self-awareness and having these paradigm shifts. And I think that's my most important message, because I always try to look into my head and I see different personalities of when I was younger. Like growing up, all I wanted was just to have what other people have. I remember growing up poor, and I just seen the first time it was visually aware to me as I was in the houses and hanging on the block, and I seen that lad. I still know him. At the time, he was a superstar in the area, rolling through, dropped VL, rims, gold chain, the lot. Invited us over in his house, flat screen TV, popped the fridge. He had a brick of fucking, must have been Speed or something at the time, like a full brick, money. And I still remember the little details, like the dream catcher, the samurai sword setup that they all had. Looking around his house, he had Foxtel on, and that was a big deal. So Foxtel was just playing VL, the cars, the gold, and I'm just like, this guy's made it. This guy has a secret. And so obviously you just want to emulate. How did you do that? We sold drugs. Well, if I want that, I've got to sell drugs.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and it just takes, I don't know, it takes so much time to grow out of that and look back at yourself and be like, man, I understand how I got to that rationality because like everybody else he had more than everybody else. He sold drugs.
Yeah.
You know, but then when as an adult, I break it down into a commodity that he sells. Going back to the ROIs, he's making a product. He's probably making a 0.5, 0.6% ROI on his investment, but he's just doing a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
And it's like, as a businessman now, that's a dumb investment.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to do a commodity that you're not going to double your money back on.
Yeah.
And you could risk jail or death. Like, that's dumb.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it just takes, I don't know, it takes time for you to step out of these little paradigms that you're in.
Yeah.
And look back on it and be like, wow, what motivated me back then to do that?
It is experience above all that is the number one takeaway for lessons, but guidance still has a big role to play. And I feel like you going through your experiences and being open enough to share them, the rights and the wrongs in what you believe decisions have led to, is still going to be valuable information for anyone who hasn't yet had those experiences. You know, it might have only been experiences that led you to your choices. Same with me. I'm the only person that could have got me to this position, but there are little pieces of advice along the way that play a big role. Say, for example, little bits of information you'd want to share and open up about when I was in training, the happiness that you really felt and the comfort in your surfing lifestyle. And you could go do a job for an electrical job and, you know, you change one fuse, made $250, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I remember taking that information in, just like I have a lot of information along the way, and being like, okay, there's something to note down about the fact that it is about comfort. It is about freedom. You know, it's not all about the money. It's not chase the chase. It's also about finding that balance, you know.
Prophet, peace be upon him, said, come to the middle. And that's what I've learned in all aspects. And either end of the scale is sad. To be hyper successful would be sad because it would come at a cost. And to have nothing would be sad because it would come at the cost of yourself. You know, definitely, regardless of whatever you decide to do, you've got to find some sort of balance in the middle. So I don't think you'd be happy on either side of the spectrum.
Yeah, I love that.
We do think we will be when we get to our end goal, but we probably won't.
Yeah, but it's nice to have that journey, knowing that the end result isn't the thing that's going to get you there, because we can constantly find balance along the way. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. Sometimes I look at some of the things that I'm going to have to go through because I'm going to put myself through them. Like I said this on another episode that hasn't come out yet, so stay tuned for everyone for episode 90. But I often feel like I've just put on my running shoes, knowing I'm going for a run, looking up at the mountain, taking a deep breath and just sighing. You know what I mean? Like, because I know what's to come ahead. Yeah. But it doesn't mean I'm going to hate the journey. You know what I mean? I just know that it's going to come with effort and lessons and problems. Yeah. But
and like you said too, in China they're very big on that. Is that problem and opportunity are two spokes of the same wheel, and that they don't see money like we see it, because we're also not even the way we see it. We've got two levels of seeing it. We see it from a scarcity point of view, probably, if you've grown up with very little. Yeah. Whereas other people see it from a level of abundance. Depends on which household. If you grew up in a poor household, you assume everyone's poor. If you grew up in a household where your dad just made money here, there, you're going to assume money grows everywhere. Yeah. But the way the Chinese see it is that money is infinite because problems are infinite. And there will be endless amount of problems, which means there will be endless amount of money. And that it's not anything that you need to grab, but you need to put yourself in the flow of it. And when it comes to you, and probably hence why there's so much water terminology around money flow, and the banks and the rivers and capacity and currency. It's all related back to water. Yeah, I like that. Me and my best mate, you might remember Patrick. We used to do the training together back in the day. We always joke about this fact, but whenever we're having problems with money, we just say, well, we'll just get more because it is infinite. You know, you're gonna get it and then you're gonna lose it. Yeah. So when you need it, just get more. You literally, it's so easy to say you've got to turn the tap on. You know, it's not as easy as it speaks. Turn the tap on and then stop the drain. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Just doing that a lot. Even just stopping the drain. If you go back, like only there's the last period of time before China that I wasn't working and I was hustling, as in selling clothes, selling Yeezys, selling stuff like that. That I was, and I had a goal, and I didn't have a constant flow of money coming. So every day I was like, whatever I sell, I have. Yeah. It was a tough time. Plus, we just had the newborn. I did have a little bit of money, but that kind of wandered away. I went through this period where I reduced myself to nothing. Like, other than my main bills, which was rent and my car, I stopped getting haircuts, I stopped going out, I stopped eating out, nothing. I bought clippers so I could cut my own hair, everything. So on the outside, you think I'm doing well, and I am. Like, alhamdulillah, I have everything I wanted. But I knew I was going through a tight period, and I reduced myself down to absolutely nothing. And it was enjoyable in some sense. Just knowing, too, that I can always go back to that. Because when you start making a bit of money, especially when I was working a lot, you go back and you look at you're spending $300 on Ubers for the week. You know, you're just doing dumb stuff. You're getting a haircut twice a week. Every time there's a bit of growth, haircut, $50.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. There's just so much waste. So when you learn to turn the drain off, you'd be surprised how much money you have. I'm
gonna take that advice. That's gonna be my next little mission I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna try and see what I can possibly reduce everything down to. Yeah, because I know I'm a fucking consumer. Yeah. I'm a consumer. So yeah, I'll
you haven't let go. They did that vape all session.
Let me tell you, bro. I vape non-stop. I've gotten to I try and quit I buy one at a time.
I've got a box of Cant in the car if you want them.
No. Every vape's my last. Every vape's my last vape. I'm telling you, but. I'll see what I can reduce it down to on a minimal level.
Yeah, you might enjoy the process. It's not for a lot of people, man, and you realise that people are living in excess, and a lot of these things are just part of your lifestyle. And people have like a direct ego or pride correlation to the amount of money they have or they spend. I've been watching so much stuff lately that's really been getting to me. It's like, bro, you're only worth what you're worth, and that's the amount of knowledge you require. I watched this guy the other day. He's like, if I give you $10 million, you're not a millionaire. You just have $10 million.
Ooh.
Millionaire is your mindset. If you have a mindset of $5 million, I'm just paraphrasing, and I give you $20 million, your mind won't work until you get back to that $5 million, because that's your comfort zone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then this other thing I heard too made so much sense. It's like, everyone wants to be a millionaire, true?
Yeah.
No, everybody wants to spend millions. Because a millionaire may be a tight ass. He budgeting. He works this out. I can do this. I can't do that. I'm putting this in to make more money. A millionaire doesn't spend $1 million. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a millionaire. We all want to know what it feels like to spend millions of dollars. We don't actually want to know what it feels like to be a millionaire, because it's probably not the lifestyle you think.
Damn.
It's probably extremely successful, which comes to another point, is that generally we are where we are based on what we want, because subconsciously we've weighed up the fact that if I want to be a millionaire, I need to be working every fucking hour of my life, you know? So it's a weird feeling that we want to spend the millions, but actually being a millionaire is probably a completely different ballgame. Yeah. It's probably not that enjoyable, because you're constantly stressed, worried, I got this, what if I lose this? I got to send this over, you know?
Yeah.
So there's a big separation in between what people think and what reality is.
Damn, you're right. Damn, that hit me. I loved that. Damn. Well, I don't want to have to wrap this up, but I always do. It always gets to a certain point where I know the episode's over. But I have got one final question, and it's the same question that I do ask everyone that comes on. But before I ask you it, I have to say thank you very much for coming and doing this episode with me, bro. It's been nothing but a gift for me, and I'm extremely grateful. So the final question is, if someone came to you for a piece of advice, mostly because they felt depressed, because they were lost, what would you say to that person?
I'd say you're unbalanced internally, and that you haven't achieved things that'll make you feel good. And that's probably the only true metric of a man is your achievements of what you can do. And like I said before, that if you are depressed, there's probably a direct correlation and amount of your depression based off where you think you are and where you deserve to be. And that we all feel that feeling of, that's, from my experience, that's where it all comes from. Depression is worrying about the past, and anxiety is stress on the future. None of them you're actually experiencing at any time. But what you will feel is when you haven't achieved what you're meant to achieve, and that feeling sucks, you know. And so delve into that, and if that's not it, then you've got to fix things in your past that you're holding on to.
I do love that idea that you're too far in the past in depression, too far in the future for anxiety. And that reminds me that the goal is actually to be present as much as possible, you know. I try and, in my head, it makes sense to look at it from a perspective of, you might be astral projecting into a world that doesn't even exist, because you're not living in the past or the future, whether you want to go as deep as whether you believe in parallel universes existing at the same time or not. But you're separating your mind from your body, you know? And yeah, coming back to the present is the most important thing. And I couldn't agree more. I feel like if you're depressed or lost, you haven't got the ultimate feeling in which I know I'm trying to achieve, which is pride, you know, like, and I only am going to get there by remembering the good things I have done and accepting the bad things I have done and find that balance. Okay, let's know to avoid this. Let's keep going towards that. Let's avoid this. Let's keep going towards that.
I think everyone deserves to feel greatness in some way, whether it be being great at your job, being a greater business owner, being a great father, just some way where you reach your potential. I don't think anyone will be truly happy unless they do that.
Yeah, I love that. Well, it was a perfect answer to wrap up what I would consider to be a perfect episode, dude. And I've more than grateful. I can't put into words for
pleasure,
it.
Man, it was good.
I'm hoping one day in the future we'll be able to sit down and catch up again. And even if it's not on the podcast, I still want to know what's happening in your life.
We'll look back at, hopefully you're as big as Joe Rogan and you bring me back on and we'll talk about the journey and see if you're still happy.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome to see all the endeavors you're going down, man. Krude's definitely making an impact in the Australian culture scene, I believe so. And it's awesome to know you have these other businesses that I wasn't even aware of. So congratulations on another son. And
very much, man.
Yeah,
pleasure.
It's awesome to see that you've continued to grow from when I first met you. So, yeah, beautiful.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.
All right, for everyone listening, thank you for making it to the end of the episode. There'll be another one next week. That's a wrap.
Shawty catch a vibe, yeah, I had to put her on. Bought her 2 seater, yeah, we heading for the sun. Shawty going high, I ain't tripping for the funds. Yeah, I won't start, I ain't tripping, I'm a stunt.